I can only be evil for so long.
Are you done? that was
Space.
3 seconds of pure evil.
Space. The final frontier. These are the voyages of the USS Adequate. Our ongoing mission, until we are not cancelled and replaced by something far superior, our own channel, bitches, to review every episode and movie of Star Trek in existence, to seek out new guests and make them very uncomfortable, to boldly go where very many other Star Trek-based YouTube channels have gone before. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Treks and Trekkers, and welcome to a brand new season of Trekking Up North, now on the official Trekking Up North YouTube channel. I am your host, Captain Goodwill, and joining me as ever is the delectable Geesian from the Terran Empire himself, Science Officer, Mirror Universe Officer, Science Officer Synoiz.
And I'm still better than this film.
You are still better than the current American government.
Hello there. How are you doing? I can't even keep the. I'm so happy that we're back. I'm so happy that we're
back, baby. Look at this! Look at this! This is just look at the new layout and the animations and this dude and that woman and
this whole thing, Goodwill. I know you spent a lot of time with it, but it reads like one drunken night on Temu. Basically, you've got a sign behind you. You got some fancy lighting.
I would like to personally, first of all, fuck you. I would like to personally...
Please. It's been a long month.
Getting from there to here. I would like to thank Mike Overton from Clone Star Podcast and LCARSworkshop.com for personally designing the brand new layout for Trekking Up North. His website can be found below, and obviously there's his website right in the corner down there in red. This is a stunning upgrade for the Adequate. And yes, you are right. The captain's ready room is now the captain's boudoir, as we have neon signs, we have red. This is, quite literally, 10% brightness. Okay? Do you want to see it at 100%?
Oh, God.
Are you ready?
Put
Get
it
your
at
glasses
100%.
on. 3, 2, 1.
My eyes! Ah!
The goggles, they do nothing! Okay, we'll turn that down. Down you go.
Oh, my word.
It is, this is a wonderful sign. My eyes. Oh, right.
I love it so much. I have to stop you quickly. Gonna need to put an edit here, I'm afraid, because my actual earbuds are literally saying low battery, and they're fading you out every couple of seconds to say low battery.
Oh, do you want to start again?
I am furious. No, we need to edit it. Hold on, let me just see what I can do.
And we are back.
That was... No, let's make it look seamless. put like a picture of a ferret or something in there, and then just be like, yeah, that's technical issues.
Just a minor technical issue. Unlike, no, actually, very much like
This whole film.
Section 31. Right.
We have been like being tactical about this whole thing of how the hell do we approach it. And every time I'm looking at your new screen, because you've spent a lot of money, sorting out your studio and stuff like that, I've gone to the equally amazing effort of taking down my picture. And that's it, basically. Although when we were chatting the other day, I was really tempted just to scroll like Synoiz in crayon on the wall behind me. Just that you've got this fancy layout, and I'm like, yeah, I'm just fucking working with anything, really.
Just like,
Synoiz, or I've made a mistake in it and crossed a bit off and kind of redone it.
But it is fantastic to be back. We have got a whole host of new features, and we are going to have some very special guests coming up in this season of Trekking Up North. However, we must begin on a low point, and that low point is starting this review of this movie. Star Trek.
I love that before we started recording this episode, you were like, let's be diplomatic about this. And I'm like, I don't think I can, Goodwill. Half of my notes are written in caps. Like there's literally a section in my notes where I've just written "what the fuck" in massive letters. And I'm like, I don't actually think I have the level of diplomacy required to manage this.
So for a bit of context for people, I was very, very fortunate to be invited down on behalf of the Clone Star podcast to the world. What we found out after the screening was the world premiere of Star Trek Section 31. Very honoured. It was a week or two before it aired on Paramount Plus. Would you like to see my only souvenir from this world premiere, Science Officer Synoiz?
Well, which obviously made it all worthwhile.
It did. Now, normally at these premieres, you do get a goodie bag, or you get a nice little badge, or anything like that. A Weatherspoons napkin with a sticker on it. And I'm like, why did they give me a napkin? And I'm just like, yes, to catch the tears of joy when the movie ended. But yeah, I was very fortunate to go down to London when I was full of flu with the Clone Star podcast and Trek Culture to the world premiere of Section 31. Thank you very much for having me, Paramount. I very much appreciate it. And it's probably going to be the last thing I get invited to after this review. However,
hey, I will say though, it's the idea of, I think it's really important because we've kind of been having a laugh like with all of the reviews and stuff we've seen, because we see every end of the spectrum. We have the wonderful Trek Culture where Sean Ferrick did his review, and it's the most diplomatic thing I've ever seen in the entire universe. The fact that he managed to do this at like 3 a.m. or whenever he was recording it.
Yeah.
And it's this idea of him being like, oh, well, let's weigh up the good points and the bad points. And you're sitting there be like, bad point, the plot. And you're like, that counts as one, does it? Like, I feel like doing a Gimli of being like, okay. And then all of his plus points, which he kind of marries up quite well. But it's like, the lighting was quite nice. And, I like this thing in the background. And you're sitting there being like, you're given a lot of free points for this one.
Before we do get into the actual review, so we were sat in the screening room, so all in one row. It was me, Mike, Ellie, Sean, Chris, and a few other people. And there were points in this movie where it must be a northern thing where you sit there with your arms crossed, right, and your leg shakes, so you do this, right? And Mike kept leaning over and going, "Are you okay?" And I'm just like, "Yeah, my engine's running." Right? And I was angry. I was angry, right? And we walked out. I approached Sean and I went, well, and he looked at me and he went, well, I know what my Trellium Down's going to be. And I was like, oh, God. But, yeah.
If you haven't already, please watch the coverage because we have the wonderful ups and downs and the full review from Trek Culture, as well as wonderful interviews with the cast member, including the one that Sean had a problem with,
Yep.
due to a certain choice, two choices, I would say. And then also the Clone Star review, which you've had some wonderful guests on there. You had
Yep.
Mel, didn't you? The
We
actress who
we
played Mel.
we are getting them all. We have interviewed Sven about that accent. But if you check out
Choices.
the choices, if you look at his face, look at that face.
That director just like, what have I done?
That is a tired man. Yeah, check out the links in description below for Trek Culture and Clone Star. But let's get into this.
Yeah.
Shall
What
we?
were your expectations going into this film? Because obviously
My
we have the wonderful thing of this is, all Trek is good Trek. We have new Trek coming out, and it's great that we are having, the anticipation was basically, wow, there's a new Star Trek movie coming out, and oh wow, it's a Discovery it's a like a continuation of Discovery, like a spin-off. Could it be like the closure that they kind of need in addition to the like rushed one that they had? And it was kind of going into this firestorm of all of these expectations and all of these like, whoa, you could do so much with this. Like, how was it for you going into it?
So, first of all, my expectations was when Synoiz was going to watch this film, I was going to receive a lot of voice notes. And I was not disappointed because he sat down and he was going, I am going to watch this. And I went, I eagerly await the voice notes. I got 14, one of which was 8 minutes and 35 seconds long. And then there was also a picture sent of just a note saying, what the is this? and I was like, that. So one of my expectations was a lot of voice notes from you, but in all seriousness, I had no expectations of this film. When it was announced as a TV show, I thought, okay, this is a good subject material to have as a TV show because we know Section 31 largely from Star Trek Deep Space Nine and similarly from Season 4 of Star Trek Enterprise. They are the Black Ops wing of Starfleet. They work in the shadows, as the bumper says at the top there, to serve the light. They muddy the waters. They deal in the grey area. They are morally questionable, morally reprehensible in some ways.
Yeah.
And when they announced Section 31, I thought, great, we are going to get sort of DS9 version of Star Trek again, but it's more Black Ops. It's more, we're going to do these questionable things and we are going to justify why we're doing this in the pale moonlight, shall we say?
Yeah.
Type of thing. And I thought, brilliant. Then they announced that it was shelved because of COVID. And then they announced that the TV series was now going to be a long trek for Paramount Plus. And what they were going to do is distill the 10-episode season into one feature-length film. So the alarm bells started ringing straight away because Discovery, by this time, Discovery was in season 3 or something like that, season 3, season 4. Michelle Yeoh had obviously left Discovery. She'd won an Oscar for Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah, well deserved.
Very well deserved. And quite famously, as soon as she got the Oscar, she did say she wanted to return to Star Trek to complete Philippa Georgiou's journey, if you will, or begin it. We never know. But my expectations were non-existent. I started getting worried after the end of season 2 of Discovery and then season 3 onwards, where I was like, okay, it could work, but the writing drastically needs to improve if it's going to be a feature-length movie.
Yeah.
So I think I only watched one trailer for Section 31 as well. I deliberately tried to avoid as much as I could. I think we saw the trailer in Destination Blackpool when me and you were there.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
So I thought, no, I'm gonna go into this with fresh eyes and a clear objective. I will
Mm,
not put my bias towards Discovery or anything like that. I will go in with an open mind. And
mm.
this is not good, man. This is not good. Like I I'm a firm believer that all Trek is good Trek. I will
Mm.
stand by that. This has problems with direction. It has problems with writing, pacing, special effects, character development. It just it doesn't work across the board, and it feels like they went, hey, let's take all the aspects of Star Trek Discovery that seem to be problematic, distill it into one movie, and then spend $90 million in doing so.
Yeah. I mean,
And yeah,
yes, I can.
no, carry on.
I fully agree. It's this idea of like it's very odd. Like it's very like I'm dubious about the people making it where you just go, I don't think you understand your audience enough that it's like everything that it attempts to do, you're just like, why would you choose that one? Like it's like they sort of got like, two options and they always pick the terrible one and you're just going, how? Like for instance, like it, the fact it was going to be a 10 episode arc explains why there's so much redundant stuff in it, where
Yes.
it doesn't spend enough time doing things, but then it has loads of stuff that you're like, why did this not get cut? Like, why is this character still here? Because the biggest problem I see, like I agree with everything you're saying, it's not a case of it's a bad movie because it's bad Trek. It's not a bad movie because like the script is bad. It's bad because of everything. Like it's, like you say, it's a terrible story that doesn't make any sense. The technology and the science in it don't seem to like the universe it's set in doesn't seem to make any kind of sense, and things just kind of happen for random reasons, and characters change between scenes, and technology changes between scenes. Uh, Given the visuals as well, where you're sitting there being like, okay, this kind of looks impressive, but at the same time, this bit looks terrible, and like, why is this here? Like, the amount of problems are ludicrous, and yeah, and it's the fact of the biggest crime I think it does in terms of being a movie is the fact it had so much potential. Like you're
Mm.
saying, it would have been so much you could flesh out with Section 31. You could do a proper, like a Tom Clancy kind of movie, or you could do a sort of probably, you could do a James Bond type movie about it where you just kind of like, and what does James Bond do? It's not eight different characters. That's literally the opposite side of it. Like the whole thing is throughout all of Star Trek before, we've met like well, if we discount like what Discovery did with Section 31, we've had like four agents for Section 31 that we've met. And only
Yeah,
one of them was like someone who really knew what was going on, which was obviously Sloane.
yeah.
And so it's kind of weird just to be like, oh, they just have tons of people, and these people are massively incompetent. Like, all of these people are absolute idiots who would never ever make it into Starfleet. And yet you're saying these are I think that's the other thing. Like, why is Section 31 not Starfleet anymore? Like, keep hammering home in the film, oh, we're not Starfleet, we don't follow the rules of Starfleet. But you're like, no, you are. Like,
You are a
aren't you?
branch of Starfleet.
Yeah,
That is why
but then
you
they
have a
act as
Delta
though they're
insignia.
not. And
Yeah.
that's why there's nobody in Section 31 except for Rachel Garrett, who's like there as like a sort of work experience kid, seemingly,
Mm.
because that's how she acts. No one else there is a Starfleet officer or has done Starfleet training. And just everything it does in terms of the law makes no sense.
So straight away, I mean, we'll get into the plot first. We'll just gloss
Mm.
over the plot because it just it whole thing felt like Team U Guardians of the Galaxy. The
Yeah, it
whole
feels like
thing.
Well, I was saying to people, I won't mention who it was, but I was chatting to people about the film and whatnot with some candid opinions, and it's the biggest thing for me is how it feels like a film that was written for a different franchise
Yeah,
didn't get accepted, so they just changed a couple of things around, threw some references in, and went, now it's Star Trek. And
yeah,
I know that's horrible to say, and loads of people are like, no, no, they wouldn't do that. But it's like it just feels that way. Even if that's not what
yeah,
actually happened, it very much feels like they went, oh, we'll throw a Delton in there, and oh, we'll change this character so that rather than being a wizard, he's a shapeshifter from like the that Star Trek movie, you know. But we're not going to remember the fact that his eyes can't change and stuff, and and then he's never going to use his shape shifting in the film except for one throwaway moment where he catches someone, and you're like, okay,
the
it's
um the plot revolves around Philippa Giorgio, which is to be expected. Um,
a
Suddenly,
character a
she's
lot of people wanted more of.
they
That I
wanted
wanted more of. There was so much you could do with this character.
everyone wanted Michelle Yeoh back as Philippa Giorgio. The plot essentially revolves around her. She is in the prime timeline. We don't know when because they never officially state it except one star date, which, if
Mm,
you take the star date, is 2326. So this is
mm,
the lost era of Star Trek between the events of the Undiscovered Country to the Next Generation. That lost period.
mm.
So apparently it's 2326. We never get that confirmed. Philippa
Yeah.
Giorgio is running a space station on the outer limits of the outskirts of the Federation, literally outside of Federation space, just on the border. Um, a wretched hive of scum and villainy. Section 31 come and find her to stop a super weapon falling into the hands of an enemy.
Mhm.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. That
That
is it. And
and
again,
there's so much you could do with that plot. There's
there is,
so
yeah,
much.
there is so much that they could have done. However, again, a super a super weapon, a biological weapon, a weapon
Yeah.
that could destroy dilithium. Again, take the worst aspects of Discovery and put them in this movie. Why does it have to be a super weapon? Why does it have to be any weapon at all? And
I mean, I
yeah,
can I get do we want to wait until later on when I go into all the problems with this weapon and how it's
yeah.
used? Because
So
I think it's that this MacGuffin is just the MacGuffin to end all MacGuffins, I think.
it is the MacGuffin to end all MacGuffins, but the like I said, the plot. They need Philippa Giorgio back into Section 31 to find this super weapon. She doesn't know why they want her, but she
Hmm.
enjoys the danger, the thrill of the chase. Long story short, we find out that this weapon is from the mirror universe and it was brought into this universe to wipe out life in this universe so the mirror universe could invade for resources.
No, 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 it wasn't meant for that at all. It wasn't meant, it was intended so that Philippa Georgiou would use it if she died. So
Oh
if
yeah, yeah,
anyone actually
in
killed
that
her, yeah.
universe. Yeah, in
But
that
then in this
universe, but
one,
yeah.
that's that, yeah, but yeah, and
It's
then
brought
what they're
into
doing in the
this, yeah.
plot of this film, yeah, and it's
Yeah. So I mean, the opening of the film, we see like a muddy desert planet next. We see a muddy location, looks like an Egyptian style location, mud huts, and a big symbol that just says the Terran Empire or Middlesbrough on a Saturday, and
with ludicrously unnecessary special effects.
it
Like it's
is,
this
yeah.
three-dimensional like text, and you're just like going, Why was this
Why?
necessary?"
But I
I don't
mean,
know. That's a minor gripe, but at the same time,
I mean, we will not go through scene by scene of this
yeah.
movie, but we'll talk about specific scenes. And the one thing I do want to talk about is the opening scene where we see a young Philippa Georgiou returning back to her family in what
Mm.
appears to be an explanation of how an emperor is selected in the Terran Empire. And again, it is essentially a rip-off of another movie. They select an emperor via the Hunger Games.
Which is it's an odd one because
It's an
like the
odd
whole
one.
thing about dictatorships. Like the whole thing about sort of oppressive societies is that they tend to kind of want to control who leads them. And so
Yeah.
it seems like a pretty good thing that they're doing in terms of going, hey, the next leader should be the strongest of us. And therefore, we have this big test where we get all of these different people, they all fight against each other. And the person who wins and shows their determination becomes the emperor. And I'm like, that doesn't feel like what the Terran Empire would do. And everything we've seen previously for the Terran Empire, kind of go, it's just the guy who kills the person in charge becomes the ruler. It's
So
survival of the fittest. So, and it doesn't give any context into kind of, oh, well, the previous ruler died and no one knew who killed him, so there is no successor and stuff. And it all of it just feels a bit like too, like not evil enough for the
so
Terran Empire.
because I've just had to quickly do a little bit of research there. Along with a lot of people who watch this film, I've had
Hmm.
to backfill justification for certain things. So
Yeah.
for this one, my
You try
theory
to
is
help the film. You
you
try to.
do.
I
Yeah.
find myself doing that with a lot of things of going, oh well, maybe I guess it makes sense if you do this, and you're like, no, I'm helping people who didn't give a fuck. I'm
Yeah,
helping people
exactly.
who didn't take the time to think of it
But
that
because of
much.
my like mildly bipolar autistic brain, I'm sat there going, right, but the events of In the Mirror Darkly from Star Trek Enterprise Parts 1 and 2, we see Hoshi Sato, spoiler alert, Mirror Universe, Hoshi
Mm,
Sato killed Mirror Universe Archer, claimed to be the leader of the Terran Empire. She becomes Empress Sato because she's got the Defiant. So,
yeah.
in order to eradicate such an archaic way of choosing a leader, they pick 18 young people at
Mm,
any given point, or when the emperor dies, or whatever. They fight it to the death. Their ultimate sacrifice is to sacrifice their family, and then he or she who does that becomes the emperor of the Terran Empire. And I've sat there and I'm
mm,
going, yeah, that makes sense because it does away with all the backstabbing and stuff like that. There is no prejudice. It's literally the strongest of all win.
mm.
I shouldn't have to sit there and do the mind math to
Yeah.
justify that. It should be explained. That is why they do it. If you want a film about the mirror, and this is the thing, guys, right? This is the reason we are doing this a month later. The embargo from Paramount was you do not discuss the fact that the mirror universe is heavily influenced in this movie. It's about Philippa Georgiou from the mirror universe.
Yeah. It's like, do not mention that Philippa Jo's in this movie, and it's like, you've said that Michelle Yeoh's in it, like.
You might as well say it, don't say it's Star Trek. Like, what?
It
But
was a
it,
weird embargo. It was a weird embargo.
very weird embargo. But this scene, because our friend David is in this scene as one of the loyal legions that beam down. But it's just we see that she returns home, and they feel that she has been the victor. She explains what they had to do and how she'd made a friend, shall we
Hmm.
say, in San. And there was one final thing that she had to do. And what did she do? She killed a family. She poisoned her family.
Yeah,
And
that
as
was
soon
the
as
final test that you had
that
to
was the
sever
final
our
test,
ties from.
yeah. And we find out that her other competitor, San, her friend, failed this test. And as per the rules of the Terran
Hmm.
Empire, he now must become her subordinate, her right hand man, despite the fact of what's clearly evident in the flashbacks that these two are in love
Yeah,
or together or friends or what.
and it's so weird that I think the main thing I'm going to say about this is they say what did they say? They said 80. There was 80 people in the race, like the Hunger
18,
Games.
1-8.
18. How
Yeah.
is that picked though? Like she's
I don't
obviously
know.
from some desert planet, and they're like,
I don't know.
let's just give a go to this one. Or is she already in the Terran Empire despite being like 14, and that they
We don't know.
pick them from the highest soldiers? None of it kind of makes sense of why she's just in the like why is there one member of this family that literally gets picked out of everywhere. I don't all of it. But I think that the biggest crime is that this whole section is totally unnecessary. It doesn't really add to the film. Like it's meant to go, oh, look how evil she is. Look, she killed her family and she's like willing to betray this man she loved. It's like they had a checklist for what makes people evil. And they're like, oh, well, killed her family. Oh, well, fell in love with someone, but then was willing to betray him and sacrifice him. That's pretty evil. But yet, Michelle Yeoh's like, what she does isn't particularly evil in this. Like, she's got this kind of redemption arc, but that is unjustified. Like, she doesn't seem
Yeah.
to do anything to change, but then changes, and but then doesn't. And yeah, it's a weird anti-hero arc, to be fair, and it would have
It's
been
the
better if they'd kept her as evil. If at the end of the
yeah.
film she'd literally killed everyone, and you'd just been like, "Oh wow, that would have done far better than this entire like flashback sequence that raises more questions than it answers."
It's this trend in Hollywood to make antagonists likable and the hero or the
Yeah,
anti-hero. And in the instance of Philippa Georgiou, it doesn't work. She is a genocidal dictator from an evil universe that murdered her family. Why does she need a redemption arc at all?
well, can she have a redemption arc? Like,
No,
there's
I don't think
literally
so.
nothing in this film. Like, it's they. I'm gonna spoilers for the film, but if you're watching this, you've either watched the film or you don't care enough to have watched the film. I would recommend you watch this film. It's not a good film, but it's also like I've rewatched it now, and I was hoping that it would be funny the second time around, or that I'd be able to have a bit of more of a laugh with it. But not so much. It kind of just made me find more problems
I
on
would
second watch, knowing what happens later.
I would
But
watch it as a watershed moment. This is
yeah,
something that needs to be witnessed to understand.
we will be talking about this for years. This is
Yeah,
we in the Star Trek community, we will be like, well, like it's horrible, but it's like, well, at least it's not Section 31, or oh, at least it's,
yeah,
that's the kind of point that it's going to have for us, I think.
yeah.
And it's but this whole flashback scene, I like the ideas of it, but it's very ham-fisted. Like, it's this idea of, I don't know, like the entire fleet were just standing by while she kills her parents. I don't, did they have some kind of, oh, well, we can detect now that you've killed your parents, so we'll fly the ship over and put it in really, really low orbit, even though we're teleporting down, because you can see
Yeah.
it. And it's
Yeah.
about like, a mile above like thing. Yeah,
It,
there's
it
so
just
much.
makes no sense. It makes no sense, but a lot of the film makes no sense because, like I said, we get no clear indication unless you are a hardcore Trekkie of when this is set. Um, we have no explanation about because we know in Discovery she went through the Guardian of Forever to go back to her time because she was phasing
Mhm.
in and out because she was that separated from her timeline and her
Yeah,
universe. So we have no explanation as to why she left in. So she went to the future in 2259. Okay.
yeah.
She went to the 31st, 32nd century. And then the Guardian of Forever in the 32nd century sent her back in time. Why did he send her back in time 70 years after she left?
Yeah.
Why?
It's also like, does that explain why? Because at the beginning we have this big sort of
Exposition dump.
fancy graphics exposition dump saying, "Hey, here's Philippa Georgiou, here's the events of Discovery and stuff." But then it kind of just says, "Oh, she went missing," and it's like, so you're the super intelligence organization in Starfleet. You are the people that know everything about everything and have spies everywhere, and you're effectively saying, "Oh yeah, we just lost her." Like,
But
we just
here's the
let that
fault.
happen, you know?
Here is the fault. They show scenes from Discovery in the 32nd century.
Yeah.
How did
Yeah,
they
it is.
know?
I think the editors just weren't paying enough attention. They were like, "Oh, just show some shots of
It's
Philippa Georgiou," you know?
lazy. It is so lazy. And again,
But
that is
that's
a
the
theme of
film.
this film. It is so lazy with the material. and she you know
Which, you know,
it's
we're talking about Star Trek. We're not talking about other sci-fi things like Doctor Who, where they don't really check over what's gone before. That, you know,
yeah
you get the feeling that there's not a big law book saying, "Hey, you can't do this, you can't do this."
yeah
Whereas this is Star Trek. This is where there was physicists helping the writers. This is where, you know, we're used to having scripts which have real scientists or philosophers being like, hey, yeah, this is how we expect this to work, and this is, you can't do this, you can't do this, or this is how this theory is. And then to have a film like this where they haven't even said, oh yeah, maybe don't do stuff from like show
yeah
stuff from after this has happened, you know, like
yeah. But again, this is the type of film it is. So she's running this space station outside of Federation space. How did she get there? Don't know. Why is she 70 years in the future from when she left in season 2 of Discovery? Don't know. Um, why is Rachel Garrett there? Don't know. Because
we
this is the other thing, right? This is the
mm,
one thing. One of the things that really gets me about this film, Paramount made a whole song and dance at the fact that Rachel Garrett was going to be in Section 31. Now, for those not intimately familiar with Rachel Garrett or Star Trek as a whole, she is the captain of the Enterprise C.
yeah.
So the Enterprise C was destroyed in the 2340s. But what happened is that destruction paved the way for the Klingon Federation alliance. It was a pivotal moment. She died with honor. She sacrificed her crew, her ship, to save the Klingons from the Romulans, and it was seen as a moment to the Klingons that these people are with honor, and that's where the alliance came from. She is the captain of the Enterprise C.
Yeah.
So they made this huge song and dance, and everyone was like, oh my God, it's Rachel Garrett. We're going to see the Enterprise C. We're going to
Yeah.
see this. We're going to see this. We get nothing.
We're going to get this beloved character fleshed out more. We're
Yeah.
going to get this amazing return for this character, which has so much potential, and this lost era where we don't really know what happened, and there's so much that you could do.
Nothing.
Then we get nothing. Like, you
We,
know, it could be anyone that you name, and you know, like they could change the name of the character, and nothing would be lost in terms of. Well, actually, things would be gained from it because
yeah.
this is the problem. Like, remember when X-Men: The Last Stand came out, like the third X-Men movie?
Mm.
Remember when that came out, and people were like, "Why did you put this character in?" If it was just some random person and you put a name on, like
Yeah.
where someone in the studio went, oh yeah, that random guy who fires twigs out of his arms, yeah, that's Omega Red. And you're like, no, it's not. It's like, oh, that random
Yeah.
woman, oh yeah, that's Psylocke. And you're like, it's not. You know, and you're just going, you didn't need to. It would have been better if you hadn't, if you just made up new characters rather than being like,
Yeah.
oh well, we'll have some lazy fan service in here and call that character Rachel Garrett. And instead you just
Because,
like, you made it worse. You actually did worse
well,
than not putting them in, you know?
here's the thing, like with the induction with the introduction of Rachel Garrett, there were rumors flying around
Yeah.
that an omitted storyline from Section 31, maybe from the series, was that the as a result of the events in
Mm.
this movie, she gets either promoted or she gets captaincy of the Enterprise C. So there was a rumor flying around that Paramount had built an actual Enterprise C bridge in the Vancouver studio, and they'd filmed these extra scenes, and you know, this is how Rachel Garrett got command of the Enterprise. So naturally, Sean and myself and Mike, we went to ask all of our contacts, is this true? Was this
Yeah.
omitted? And everything like that. Everyone just went, no. So, like, even that glimmer of hope to say, yes, we had Rachel Garrett, yes, we had this awesome story arc for her, but because it was a movie, it was omitted, but it might be in the next one. They had nothing. And a
Yeah.
load of people have asked the same thing. Why would you introduce, or why would you bring back a beloved character from yesterday's Enterprise, a captain of the
Mm.
Enterprise, and do nothing with her in the movie?
We,
It just makes no sense.
and I think that is one of the main things we need to touch upon, which is the characters in this. Like
Oh, yes, let's.
I have never seen a movie that has just no likable characters in. And it's really strange. It's
And
really strange that
that's not to say the
everyone
actors are not
no, no, no.
likable. The
The fact
characters.
is, everyone has said that the actors are absolutely
Oh, they
lovely.
are.
Like you've interviewed
Yeah,
a lot of them, Sean's interviewed a lot of them, kind of thing. I've seen interviews with them, and you're like, never ever blame the actors. Like
never.
yes, the Irish accent was a choice by the actor,
Well,
and it
we'll get
was
into that. Yeah, yeah.
but I obviously a lot of people feel it's a mistake, but that happens. It's no shade to the actor, but it's the fact of the writing, the actual script for these characters. Nobody does anything. Like
Hmm.
I think the most egregious thing is the beginning of the film. It literally has they're just there. Like most of them
The
are just
Karen there,
there for the film. They
the
could,
alien race
oh,
there, right above
yeah.
them. There was only
They're, now,
two. There was only two remaining members of that species in Let
yeah,
That Be Your Last Battleground. Where did that one come from?
but they were both male, weren't they?
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's maybe that's a part of the race, but that's exactly the thing though. A lot of the references here, like having that kind of race in, like that species in, suggests that they just went, let's just throw some stuff in. Oh well, what have we got? I've Google searched Star Trek races. The black and white guys have come up. Oh yeah, we'll throw one of them in without actually reading the episode or and all of the references feel like that. Like
Yeah.
they have phasers, they have tricorders, but it's obviously by someone who doesn't quite know how a tricorder is meant to work. Like,
The
but
galaxy
then
folding fawn with a really poor LCARS design on it.
yes, but I think, but with the characters, it has all these characters and they're not there for any reason. I mean, one of the most egregious things for me is the opening scenes where basically what is the guy's name? I don't even know what the leader's name is of this film. Like yeah, the bald guy, okay? Basically,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I don't know his name. Like that is how
And you have just seen
forgettable
the
all of these.
movie.
I've literally just watched the movie. It's like Discovery though, where you just go, so who are the bridge crew? Like we see them
Yeah.
every episode, but I don't think any of them ever get named or personalities. But he's in the movie a lot, and yet I don't remember what his name is, and he has one little bit of exposition that goes, "Hey, here's your story." Doesn't make any sense, but it's like,
Yeah, it's like
but let's
we're
waste
gonna
five
give
minutes on it.
you we're gonna give you an interesting backstory, but we're not gonna give any clarity, and we're gonna move on really quickly from that.
Yeah, and it's
And
like, well,
then
why did you do that? Like, it's
yeah,
not related to the plot. It's
but
kind of fleshing out a character, but in a way that doesn't justify anything about him.
I mean
You know,
the opening scenes where it's just like an eBay Ocean's 11 where Philippa has made out every Section 31 agent in the bar, and then they go back
wait,
to the ship, and you have this weird like heist movie introduction. Oh,
yeah,
here's Fingers, here's Legs McGee, and here's this person, and you just like
wait. It's the fact that it's the whole thing. Like, the so basically, what I'll do is I'll talk a bit more about this opening scenes, and then there's big gaps in my notes because a lot of the other scenes just aren't necessary. Like where you just go, oh, this thing happens and that's it. There's no details to talk about. But in this opening scene, there's so much going on because we get to Philippa Jojo's bar. There's someone there to meet her, and then it basically is the bald guy who's the secret agent from like Section 31. And then he goes, oh, I've got some drugs to sell you, kind of thing. They're really rare. And then she goes, yeah, come back. We'll go to my private quarters and we'll test them out and stuff. And then this is an egregious thing for films that really annoy me is they partake in these really illegal drugs that he's trying to sell her, and it does nothing. We literally have her be like, oh, that's a bit of a buzz. And then she coughs out some glitter, and then she's
that's it.
fine. And you're just
Yeah.
like, these are the worst drugs I've ever seen. Like, the whole rest of the scene should be both of them just absolutely mindless on the sofa, kind of thing, being like, that's amazing. I would shoot him in the spot. If someone gave me something like that and they were a drug dealer, I'd be like, well, that's not worth any money, is it? It just made me cough up some glitter. But it's evil drug thing, like it's like evil heist movie drug stuff, and oh, they're
Yeah.
being evil. Anyway, she immediately clocks everyone because for some reason every one of his team was just randomly in the bar. And I don't know why. I don't know why you wouldn't just put one guy there just in case things go wrong, and then everyone else waits on the ship. I don't know why they're all there except to look really suspicious. Because wouldn't you be suspicious if you ran a bar that seemingly for every scene in this film has about 5 people in it, and then suddenly 8 new people turn up, and they're all really, really suspicious. Like, there's a guy in a mech suit, there's like a laughing Vulcan, there's like, a Delton, and nobody has seen one of them for ages, kind of thing. All of it, they are the worst secret agents I've ever seen. And then she clocks all of them, and then they go back to her ship, and then no, they go back to their ship, and then they fill in the whole plan of, hey, this is what we're going to do. And this was what annoys me, because it's terrible writing that all of the people's reason to be on this mission is so paper thin because the plot needs it to happen. So their whole plot is like, oh, what we'll do is we'll do it where I don't know what happens. Mel uses the Delton uses her sort of like seductive powers or whatever to sort of seduce someone, and then that allows the shapeshifter to get into the room that he can then transform into Michelle Yeoh, and then she seduces, and then she goes to the guy, and then they get take him to the back room or whatever, and then the big strong guy comes in and punches him in the face, and then they steal the case. And you're like, okay, why is the bald guy there then? What does he do in this mission? Also, couldn't you just have the shapeshifter from the start be Michelle Yeoh,
Yeah,
like be Jojo, lead the guy to a room, and then shoot him in the head? Like
yeah.
all and that, and you know for a fact that the only reason why they're all there, oh yeah, the bloody the Vulcan, the nano guy, he's like this particle that lives inside a
Oh,
robotic
fuzz.
body.
Yeah,
He is the biggest problem in the whole film.
yeah,
And I'm not just talking about the accent, I'm talking about this can of worms of technology it opens, where you're like, this makes no sense. Why does it change how it works every single scene? Also, this is way too powerful for any kind of film. Like it's yeah. But basically he confuses the guy that makes him more likely to go into the room. I don't know. Anyway. But yeah, and you just like all of them are there for no reason, but it's because the film knows that the mission is going to fail and they're needed later in the film.
yeah.
Except hilariously, they're not. Like none
But I
of them are
mean,
needed in the film.
what really pisses me off, and Discovery did this quite a lot. We see that the mission fails, a mysterious assailant, which looked kind of like Star Lord, um, they get the dude with all the cybernetic into the room to steal the briefcase because this is what the weapon is, and then Star Lord from Team U comes in, takes the case. He's got a, but there's a device where he can go through the walls because he shifts the harmonic frequency, so he can go through the walls, but can't go through the floor. But
Hey,
then,
see, I will say I was actually arguing with Sean about this because it was the idea of one of Sean's criticisms is because basically if you haven't seen it, yeah, well, no, we're going to assume you've seen it. The phase shifting thing that they have. This is my favorite bit of the whole movie. This is my favorite idea of the whole movie,
hmm,
where basically they have these devices that you slap it on something and it takes something out to a different phase frequency, and then you put on something else, and then you can both interact with the two items because you're at the same phase, which means that you can just grab where Michelle Yeoh uses it to grab the secret weapon off the courier bloke, the
hmm,
guy they're tricking, and then can just walk off with it, and he can't do anything because he's out of phase with her. That is a great idea. And the stuff you can say about maybe it recollects what what your sort of, what is it what your horizontal align no what your vertical alignment was when you did it, so that's how it kind of remembers where the floor is, so you don't phase out of it. It wouldn't explain how they can jump on tables and jump around and stuff like that, but it's Star Trek. There is, but this is another instance of we are filling in the gaps that they didn't
thank
bother
you.
with.
But this
But,
is
but
the
I loved it. But then the problem is when the villain turns up, so she does this thing of, ho, 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 I'm going to walk off with the suitcase. I'm amazing. And then this guy just turns up who's also using one of these incredibly rare devices and is able to fight Michelle Yeoh. And you're like, how does he know the right frequency to be at? Like,
yeah.
how does he know exactly what phase to be in and randomly have one of these things that is seemingly incredibly rare, that she mentions is incredibly rare, and just turns up at the right moment for it? And you're just sitting there being like, this annoys me because it could have been so good. and it would have gone, hey, there's a traitor. She mentioned earlier. If you'd mentioned earlier, oh, I've got this phase thing and this is the frequency I'm going to set it at, and then it had her saying that, and then we go, oh, yeah, the traitor from later is able to sort of hear that. But no, nothing like that. He just randomly turns up and it suggests that there's only one phase you can be out of, in which case the device is kind of useless. But
But even in the fight sequence, the Delton that they have built up over the last
the
3 minutes,
character,
the best character is killed.
See, everything about her is like get rid of the bald guy, lose him from the movie, and have Mel as the leader of the gang because she has that energy
But
in the briefing scene that they have. She feels like she's in charge of everyone,
but
and then
but
they just kill her.
they kill her. What gets me is they kill her, and there's this like emotional moment, but there is no warrant for this emotional moment. We
They
have been
haven't earned
watching the
it.
movie for about 5 minutes. We can't get on board on that emotional level about a character that we've only seen for 5 minutes. And this again is something that Discovery did time and time again. Oh no, Ensign Dudar is dead. We've known him for all of 30 seconds. And it's just, you cannot get the audience on board with stuff like that.
It very much feels like it's written by people, and this is something that we're seeing a lot in the industry with a lot of video games that are coming out, where they seem to be written by people who don't really know how emotions work and don't really know
Yeah.
how that kind of they go, oh well, somebody died, therefore it is a sad moment, and you're like, that's not how it works. There's
You
more to
can't
it than that. There's more
convey
nuance than that.
you can't convey a level of emotion in the space of 5 minutes. Like
Yeah.
we don't feel the same way that the characters are feeling on screen. So there is this disconnect in this uncomfortable pause in the pacing of the movie. You grind the movie to a halt to have this moment that none of the audience, quite frankly, cares about.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing, like I say, with the characters, it's the fact of there's like, how many are there? Is there like 8 characters in total?
One, two,
Like how many?
three, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Seven.
They're right there on the screen, so I've just had to count them.
Oh, right. There's seven people on the team, okay? You can lose the bald guy. You can lose Rachel Garrett. You can lose. I would lose Fuzz. I would lose Fuzz and replace him with something better that is like less problematic in terms of stuff.
Do we want to
You could
discuss Fuzz?
You could, well, not yet, but we could lose. But the fact is, if we just went, hey, we've got Mel, she's the team leader. We've got Quasi, who's the shapeshifter, but then he turns out to be the traitor. There's so much he could do, all of the stuff that he's expected to do potentially in this film. You could lose the Met guy. The Met guy's not necessary. It could literally be a team of 3 people that have time to bond and stuff over the course of this. But obviously they threw all these cartoon characters in because they were trying to make Suicide Squad. They were trying to make
And the
something
thing
else.
is, and the thing is, we've gone on about how our minds have had to fill the gaps while watching the movie. Rob Kaczynski, who plays the mech dude, he is hardcore Star Trek fan.
Yeah,
Really, like so knowledgeable.
Were telling me about this, and I was just like, but I'm kind of like going, did you not get annoyed? Like, I'm tempted to ask him, like, did you not get annoyed seeing the script being like, okay, that's not how that works, but they're not going to listen to me,
So he had an interview where he was again doing what we did, trying to fill in the backstories. And he said the reason why his character is in a mech suit is because he was a paraplegic, and this is the only way that he could regain his mobility. And that, if that was explained on screen, like, why is the dude in the mech suit? Oh, well, he's a paraplegic, and via the power of the suit, very much like the visor for Geordi, where it gives him the power of sight, the mech suit gives the power of movement, and that would have been a good little thing to know. But no, he's just a dude in a mech suit.
Yeah, there's so much you could do in terms of the lore building. Like, for instance, this is a really obscure reference, but like, please comment on this video if you know what I'm talking about here. But there was an amazing, I think, before its time, like cartoon series called Phantom 2040 in the 90s that I watched as a kid. And there's a character in it who is basically a soldier who gets massively injured, where he basically gets all of his limbs blown off during like a during like a war. And then a company basically sort of steps in and like makes him into a cyborg. They basically give him new limbs or whatever. But then they're kind of like going, "Hey, cool, you're company property now. So you work for us. If you ever want to leave the company, we're going to take our property back and leave you like without limbs." And so he gets forced to do all of these horrible things for this like corporation and become like a villain in the story because of this sort of like hostage situation he's in effectively with them. And then obviously I think as the story goes on, it turns out that actually he didn't get that badly injured. They just did it to him, like in order to get like a sort of subservient person. And you could do something like that. You could be like, hey, this is Section 31. This is the agency that tried to like perform genocide against the founders. This is an agency that essentially was like, well done, Cisco. Like well done. That
Yeah.
was some good stuff in the Pale Moonlight. And yet, there's so much you could do that adds to the universe, the lore of Star Trek, and kind of goes, yes, if Section 31 is going to be the thing that goes against Gene's vision for the future by being so sort of evil and so subversive, you double down on it. You go,
Yeah.
yeah, they're that bad. And yet, like you say, nothing. His
Nothing.
character gets nothing in this film. And it's a shame because he's really cute. I don't like him in the film, like in terms of the character. He's funny, but he's not. Like he's trying to be funny and it doesn't land. But you just go, he seems like a really nice guy. And there's stuff you could have done with this character that they don't. Yeah. However,
Fuzz.
before we get to Fuzz, I can't do this, Goodwill. Okay, I can't. I need a drink. Okay, so we agreed this that
Oh
I'm
no.
the
Oh
drink
no.
that I've been saving since Las
No.
Vegas.
No.
The
No.
canard. That's it. There's no way I can get through more of this and talking about this character than if I actually drink the
I
canard.
thought we were gonna have canal with Damar.
We're gonna we were gonna save it, but I can't. Hold on.
Oh no.
Oh,
Oh my. What does it
wow,
smell
that's
like?
really heavy. The lid. Well, wine, I guess.
Wine.
I don't know, but look at it. It's absolutely gorgeous. This is from Star Trek Wines, by Wines That Rock, I think. But
Hmm.
yeah, we got this in STLV, which is absolutely amazing. I think you can only order it in the America. You can't
You
actually get
can.
it in the UK. But if
That
you are
is correct.
watching from America, you are able to order this. So, and then I have special cubic
Oh,
glasses for
cubic. Very
yes for the thing.
nice.
Okay, let's try some of
Here we
this. So
go.
let's. Yeah, I need to have at least some wine before I can attempt
He's actually
talking about
making me
fuzz.
really thirsty just looking at this. Here we go. Oh. Oh.
Ooh.
Oh. Oh.
It's nice. What I'll say, it's got a fruity taste. It's also got a slightly what do you call it? Alka-Seltzer kind of vibe to
Okay.
it. It's like, where it's tangy, but then it's also got this kind of like kick to
Aniseed?
it. Yeah, it's that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Oh. Oh, da da.
Ooh, I can see why Damar liked this. But yeah, no, cool. Okay. I've got a drink. I'm gonna fill up a little bit more.
Yeah, you fill
And
up.
then
Yeah.
let's do this.
Yeah. Oof.
But yeah, it's Fuzz is the most problematic character I think I've
You do
seen
that,
in
I'm gonna get a
anything.
water.
You're
Just
gonna get a
across the
water,
road.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Keep going.
So guys, Fuzz is a problematic character, and it's not down to the actor. Like the actor's choice of voice is frustrating, but it's more the decisions that make this happen. Like this is a character where in Star Trek we like things to make sense. We like to go, oh, this is how the science works, this is how this race works, this is how this character works and stuff. And then none of this makes any sense. This is a race that seem to have no knowledge of other races because basically they what we see this is a race that is like literally the size of a
Nantonites. And
Nantonites. Have we ever heard of them before? They ever
no,
been mentioned before? No.
no,
Yeah. So they are tiny, like amoeba-sized sort of like creatures. Like it shows them about the size of a bit of dust. But
yeah,
then it's a little guy riding inside a spaceship, like riding inside his own little spaceship. And that can fly into things and mess around with stuff. So I don't know if it's a case of it interfaces with stuff, or if it's a case of it just sort of shoots things and does things. But effectively, this tiny little creature rides around in a mech suit. So it has a full robot, like an android body, that it can fly into the head of and then pilot as though it was its own body. Okay, it's there's a lot of power there. There's a
it's
lot of
very
oh
Men in
wow.
Black.
Yeah, it's very Men in
Yeah,
Black and it's very generic sci-fi, like which
yeah.
means that this I think if this wasn't the Star Trek movie it was, and like it had been accepted by Marvel or whoever the script was pitched to first, uh, this character wouldn't have changed. They would have been exactly the same
Yeah.
thing. Like it's not catered for Star Trek this race. But it's the fact of like, so you make a robotic mech and you just go, oh, well, what would you have? What would you make that mech be? Would you make it be like a generic sort of human or something? Would you make it be a specific race? And instead, it's a Vulcan. It's a Vulcan with a very choice haircut, like a sort of funky looking Vulcan. You're like, why would you do that? Like, unless it was that the mech suits couldn't show emotion. So it was too much for the pilot to control emotions and stuff through it. So they would pick a Vulcan, therefore it wasn't emotional and that would and people wouldn't question it. They'd be like, oh, it doesn't smile, it doesn't do much, it's pretty boring because it's a robot. But actually they'll just go, oh well, it's a Vulcan. But then he's the most emotional character in the whole film. He is the most emotive. He is constantly laughing, constantly smiling, constantly sort of pulling funny faces and being dramatic. Like he's a very very camp character. And you just like none of these choices make any sense. Also, the need for the robot doesn't make any sense. Like, why does he need to be in this robot body? Like, what wouldn't it be better if it was just a guy? Wouldn't it be better if he just take someone hostage? Like he just kind of, or there was another member of the team that he existed in until he was needed, or I don't
He
know. How do
he
you feel about it?
literally right.
You got your order. I've got my canar.
Okay.
I've literally my notes here when we get to this bit of the movie is Foz, why the fuck is he Irish? In capital letters on my page.
I I have Irish heritage in
Hmm.
my family. When I heard this accent, I was offended. I felt for Sean. Um, Star Trek has a storied history when it comes to portraying the Irish.
Hmm.
And there is a famous story with Colm Meaney in Deep Space Nine where, do you remember that one where people's dreams were coming true? So Cisco's baseball
Yeah.
thing and
I yes, yeah.
Rumpelstiltskin, they were going to portray that Rumpelstiltskin as a leprechaun. And Colm Meaney, who, let's not forget,
Hmm.
this was his first major role in Star Trek,
Yeah.
went up to the writers and said, you don't want to do this. This is
Yeah.
highly offensive to the Irish. And we've had it. We've had the Irish in the Next Generation and stuff. But I want to know, and I've not yet seen the interview with Clone Star,
Hmm.
but I want to know whose choice was it to have this Irish accent,
I
and why did they
I
not hire a voice coach?
the thing is, I spoke to Sean about this because obviously Sean was initially, I was frustrated by it, and then interviewed then did more research and spoke to people about it, and then got to interview the actual actor, and was like, it was the actor's choice. It was the actor's choice to go like, hey, he was like, I felt the character needed it, kind of thing. But then it's the idea of no one stopped him, no one stepped in and said, hey, maybe you don't know Star Trek that well, but it has a problematic history with the Irish. Because
Not
I
not
think
one
that the biggest,
person.
Yeah, that's it. No one stopped him. And then at the end of the film, we have the same thing with a Texas accent where you're just like,
Yeah.
you are a good-looking man. I'm sure you are a wonderful actor. I'm sure you're a wonderful person, but maybe accents aren't the thing. Like maybe
Yeah.
more voice coaching, which is
And
shade from me, but
in terms of
yeah.
fuzz, getting away from the accent, in terms of
Yeah.
fun, fuzz, because there's no fun in this. Fuzz as a character, it is purely a plot device so that he can get into the mech suit. That
Yeah.
is
And
the
it's just like
only reason that that character exists.
and if you just gone, hey, it's a shapeshifter who's the traitor, you could have just done away with both those characters
Yeah.
and had the same thing. You know, like it doesn't even hold on. I'll just quickly complain about the thing with the Irish, okay, in Hollywood, and you know, Star Trek's been bad with them. It's had, you know, like Fairhaven wasn't that bad. It was like sort of okay, I get it. The Americans have this weird vision of what the Irish are like. That's kind of okay, fair cop, but then you know, it wasn't particularly offensive because it was saying, look, they're idyllic and it's something to want to be. Whereas in the next
Yeah.
generation, it was more offensive. It was more like, oh, look at the silly Irish. But the problem was that as soon as the Fuzz character appeared and had this Irish accent, I was like, oh, they're the traitor.
Mm,
Oh, oh, they're going to betray everyone, are they? Just
yeah.
like Charlie Hunnam's character in Rebel Moon, just like every portrayal of Irish characters in Hollywood. It's like, yeah, they're the trickster. It's like when people talk about like traveling folk, like gypsies and whatnot, and you're like, oh, I wonder if they're going to be mischievous and stuff. And you're like, these are horrible stereotypes to work with in, and it's lazy. It's lazy. Like if they'd done something with it where they'd made him seem suspicious and then like was actually no, he's the only true one, that would have been great. But instead, you know, like and
Because
that annoyed me about it, you know.
because when we see him infiltrate, because obviously the Rob Kaczynski's character in the mech suit dies. We're not gonna go through in great detail of the entire movie.
Hold on.
Please go and
I
watch it.
I will mention though this whole scene, okay, with him dying, like oh, it's so bad though.
It's so
I don't know where to
frustrating.
go with this because they kidnap Dada No, and yes, the guy they're stealing the weapon from is called Dada No. For some reason, they named this character after Ivanka Trump's first words, but it's the fact of like they kidnap him with this ludicrously over elaborate plan, and then they so I'm not looking at you because you're laughing, but yeah, they kidnap him, and then they randomly leave the safe space station that they have, go on their ship to a random planet that they don't need to be doing,
With
and then
flamethrowers,
yeah, and then
because Discovery.
someone blows up the ship, and then they have to go to this planet and escape to this planet, and then and then they're trapped on this planet, and you're like, what is this planet? There's literally just all these random like generators, like some like they look like from what is it? Until no, not Until Dawn. Oh, Dead by Daylight. They look like Dead by
Yeah, yeah,
Daylight generators, just with gouts of flame coming out of them randomly. I'm like, I don't. Why is this planet? Like,
yeah.
what is this
What
planet?
is the purpose? Is it a mining planet? Is it
Yeah.
what is it? But I mean, the
But then they
scene.
find
Yeah,
that they find this thing. They go like, oh, there's a beacon here that we could use to send a message to like send for help or whatever. Oh, but it's missing a crucial part, kind of thing. And then the Met guy vanishes. The Met
mm-hmm.
guy sneaks off, and
The
everyone's like, oh,
quietest mech
like,
guy
yeah,
in the universe as well. By the way.
instantly just kind of wanders off. And then they're kind of like, oh, where's the Met guy? And they all together go off to look for him. And in the space, okay, the space of spoilers, the Met guy is being controlled by by Fuzz, like the little nano thing. It's got into his cybernetics. It's taken control of him, and then he is puppeteering another person who is trying to resist, and yet that person still has the the subtlety and the sort of the stealth to sneak away from people in a mech suit, run a ring around them to get back to exactly where he started from after they left the room, put a device in, like a power source, into the beacon, program the beacon to send a specific message to something, and then shoot the beacon, and then escape out of the facility and get onto a ship without anyone noticing. And you're sitting there being like, surely someone had the script and went, this shouldn't be the Met guy doing this. Can we
Yeah.
can we not just say he can control people? Why is it the Met guy? Yeah, and then all
But
of it. I
but
don't.
when
It makes me so
but
angry.
when they are going looking for the Met guy, this is one again another frustrating scene when they're going to look for the Met guy. Philippa goes, "Oh, his suit's leaking." How do you know his suit's leaking? You've seen some liquid on a tree. How do
Yeah,
you know the suit's leaking? And then they find the body and they're able to like pull up
yeah.
the recording.
Also, what she finds on a tree is like this sort of like black liquid, and I'm like,
Yeah,
why in Star Trek, where we have like actual generators and dilithium like and whatnot, why is he powered by oil? Like,
yeah.
like hydraulics, I could assume, like maybe there's water in the system or something. We don't see any of them on there, but you're just sitting there being like, why is he leaking a substance in a universe where we have like,
Yeah.
dilithium crystals and like and you're sitting there be like, oh, it's because you don't know Star Trek at all. Oh, it's because this character was meant for a different
But I mean,
franchise.
even
I get
like
it.
when they find the body, and this is what's really annoying with me because this is the Starbucks cup in Game of Thrones, the tricorder, right? The
The
tricorder,
Motorola. Yeah.
that is not a tricorder. That is a phone. You left the phone light on. You recorded the scene with the phone light on. Phone light. But then they
But
find him, and then they're
it's
like,
but it's also the missed opportunity. Like I remember Sean and I remember yourself talking about like how all they needed to do was throw a monster maroon outfit in this film somewhere to be like, oh, it's set in this era of space.
yeah,
Like, but you could have used the tricorders from that. You could have used phasers and tricorders from that. All it would have taken is going, hey, this is the technology of the time. All we need to do is Google it and be like, oh yeah, we'll make a phaser that looks like that. We'll make a tricorder that
and
looks like that.
here
But
is
they
the
just
thing.
didn't.
But here is the thing. In the poster, one of the posters, Rachel Garrett is holding a phaser from the Wrath of Khan era that we don't see in the damn movie. And again, it's a
Ah,
tiny thing, but it would have been like, this is when it is set. Nope,
yeah,
didn't have it. But I want to get back to this when they recover his body and they
yeah.
play his black box, right? And
Hmm.
you can clearly see this mech suit has been taken over. Someone is in control. He is fighting it. And then every single one of them goes, how did he do that? Why did he kill himself?
Yeah, and literally we had a scene at the beginning where Fuzz specifically says, "I can take over cybernetics, and that's my whole point of this mission." And you're sitting there being like, "Who could it have been?" And it's also the just bizarre stuff where you just go, none of the timelines of anything. Like we're saying, I'm complaining about the timeline of the mech suit, like sneaking around and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. But then we're like, they find the body and it has one of Rachel Garrett's hairs on, which well done to Emperor Jojo. She manages to find a hair in near darkness upon a guy's like person. But then you're like, how is this placed here? Like, did the amoeba sized thing, like did the dot sized thing manage to drag it over and place it on the body? Did he do it earlier on? Like, was it did he do it before he set the whole thing off and just put it and nothing happened? Like all these little things where you're sitting there being like, if this guy is the size of an amoeba, how can he do these things?
Right?
And it could explain it. It could say he has telekinetic powers. He doesn't need to actually be piloting them. He's doing it through mind control. You could have a psychic character rather than this nano guy and then be like, hey, they're puppeteering people using psychic powers. That's better. That's actually okay. Yeah, cool. Can't see that many plot holes there.
Can
But
we?
instead, what we have is because we have a scene here where they try to be clever and do foreshadowing, but then they forget about it later. Where they have Fuzz, like where they have when they're leaving when they're chasing around for Zeph, the Met guy,
Yeah, yeah.
when they're chasing around for I'm glad I remembered the name there. Basically they make a point of having Fuzz like the mech suit, being very sort of vague and talking like a robot and being like, "Oh, I am fine, thank you," bah, 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 bah. And they have a scene like that, and then they go, "Oh my God, he was on autopilot during this bit because he was actually inside like Zeph controlling his things." And then later on in the movie, they go, "Nah, actually, the autopilot's just perfectly fine and doesn't actually talk like that and is perfectly." And so you're sitting there being like, they don't even remember what happens earlier on and later on, and I don't know if it's the actor, if the actor should have been playing the later scenes when he's on autopilot, like he's just a mindless robot, rather than laughing and smiling. But
But I mean, the
yes,
interrogation scene with Rachel Garrett, like, you can clearly see that the mech suit has been compromised and he's fighting for his
yeah,
survival in that mech suit, but they still proceed to interrogate Rachel Garrett, despite the fact that we know that Fuzz can infiltrate a mech suit because he fucking said it at the beginning of the film. But then
yeah,
the worst scene in the entire film happens. This goddamn 5 minute long, nonsensical,
oh,
AR wall, badly edited, badly dubbed, badly visually effects, whatever scene plays out for 5 minutes. And this is where I was sat with my legs crossed, shaking, because I genuinely thought, now I was ill at the time I saw this film, right?
hmm,
I genuinely thought, right, I hallucinated this. I need more than that. I genuinely thought I hallucinated this scene, right? So I watched it in the theatre, okay?
mhm.
I couldn't understand what was going on, who was talking, who was fighting, where the direction was, or anything, because it was so badly done. But what made it worse, it was not needed. If they'd have got rid
Yeah,
of this scene, right? If they'd have got rid of this fight scene and then just added 5 extra minutes of exposition to build characters, it wouldn't have been as bad. But this scene, it dragged on too long. It was poorly choreographed, poorly rendered, bad, really horrendously bad audio because you couldn't see the characters' faces, so you didn't know who was talking because all the voices sounded the same, right?
yeah.
And I'm just sat there and I'm like, why
it
am I
it was
watching
straight.
this?
It was straight from the Michael Bay school of cinema, where you're just like going, "Wow, it's a really fancy fight scene where it's happening too fast and you can't actually tell what's going on or who's doing what or who's moving." And you're like, "What a waste of money that was!" Like
Can I
it.
can I can I add, right? I
Hmm,
need to get this right. This film, I'm sitting up now. This film went through so much post-production after effects.
hmm,
I cannot believe it. I watched because I said to you, two of my biggest gripes, and I mentioned this on the Clone Star review. Two of my biggest gripes, production-wise, was
hmm,
the 360-degree camera flip during a fight scene, because it's been done to death in Discovery. Get over it. And then the smash zoom. Now, for those that don't know, the smash zoom is a zoom where you image scale
oh yeah.
footage in post production. So it's not the camera zooming in whilst recording,
Hmm,
as I would have done as a cameraman back in the
yeah.
day. It's someone sat on Premiere Final Cut, they get it, and they zoom in to trick the audience's eyes onto focusing on one specific thing. So we
Hmm,
see this throughout this film, right? Now, once or twice, yeah, you can forgive it. This film has this specific plugin, this specific effect, 58 times.
bloody hell, that much.
58 times they use the same effect. It is not needed, it is distracting, and it cheapens the film, because this is an effect used, right, in student films, in low budget films, in films that you see on Tubi and stuff like that. Not
Hmm,
in a $90 million Paramount Pictures film, okay? It was so annoying, but this fight scene and everything all the way through, they sat and they watched the rough cut of this film and they went, it's not dynamic enough, it's flat, what do we do? And they just absolutely peppered it with After Effects, and it just really, really got me. And this
Well,
fight scene with all the crash zooms and the bad AR wall, the bad fighting, the audio mixing. Though apparently there was music, I never heard it, right? But this
yeah,
was the scene
the
where I just got really angry with the film.
I think, yeah, I fully agree with this because it's like there's, from my point of view, there's so many problems with how this scene plays out in the first place, such as like going, because basically Zeph is dead, Zeph
Yep.
has been like killed and stuff, but then when they discover like, oh my God, there's an autopilot on like Fuzz's like robot body. Okay, that explains why he can do stuff, and then Fuzz in his little control room, his little tiny little amoeba-sized control room pulls a lever at the side and then is able to activate Zeph again. And I'm just like going, so why did you need the autopilot if you don't actually need to be in the mech suit in order
Yeah.
to control stuff? Like that is a whole this makes no sense, the science behind
Yeah.
this. But then the precision where he manages to bring Zeph back to life, even though he is dead, because I don't know, like maybe he runs on a power source, maybe he didn't leak all of his fuel like that we saw, but somehow he's able to bring a dead person back to life, which it annoys me. Okay, it really annoys me because we go, hey, what are his powers? If he's doing it psychically, that's fine, but then why are there levers? Like, if he's doing it psychically, then why does he need to actually be over there and using the autopilot on the other suit? If it's not psychically and he has to actually get into the nervous system and he controls every single nerve pulse using loads of levers and he's just really fast with them, how can he do two suits at the same time?
Yeah.
Like, because this very much demonstrates that he's not autopiloting the Vulcan body because he's doing all these controls and he's laughing and he's talking as if it's him. But then you have the zombie of Zeph like wandering around firing like guns and stuff and basically being like a zombie. But yeah, it just annoys me because Trek is
I'm,
something where there are a lot of leaps of faith, but effectively what it does is go, hey, here's this technology and here's the limits of this technology. That is why we still argue about the warp, what's it called? The warp tearing the universe apart and
yeah.
stuff, and how there's stuff specially done where they change the designs of the ships and they had stuff going on further and like outside canon being like, hey, this is how they got around that problem and this is how they changed to adapt to that. This tiny little thing. And yet we have a film here where they're just going, no, we don't need to explain any of this. It
But
just stuff happens. It's a sci-fi,
but why does
which is the
punching
disrespect that they have.
but why does punching a robot hurt the robot?
Yeah, that's it. It literally in this scene we have this big crappy fight scene or whatever that goes too fast and they're on this flying platform
It's a
thing, this
Star
levitating
Wars
platform
moment,
thing.
let's be honest.
Yeah, they have literally someone gets thrown off it and the shape changer flies out and grabs them and then uses their power to sort of, catch them before they hit the ground. And that's the only useful use of his powers in the
Yep,
whole
that's
film.
it.
There is no need for him to be there in the entire film if that's all he's going to use his powers for. Uh, and then basically it's only Giorgio and Buzz left, and they're on this gravitating platform that somehow can go a mile into the sky and not lose traction. I don't know how that works. That seems to be some crazy technology there. But they're on this platform and they're fighting, and she's punching him in the face and ends up stabbing him in the back and stuff. And it affects the robot. Like
Yeah. He
has
feels
Fuzz gone like,
pain.
yeah, Fuzz, like the robot feels pain, like, and it literally, we have a scene at the end where we have the bald guy, I still don't know his name, the bald guy fighting against the robot suit and
Yeah.
stabs him in the face, like stabs him between the eyes with sort of a knife or whatnot, and then the robot suit's like, haha, joke's on you, I'm on autopilot, and it's like, but why did he think that stabbing something would affect something the size of a molecule? Like, why? How would a knife? Like, you just need to move a slight bit to the side to avoid it. Like, it makes no sense. It
Yeah.
literally, they should have been like, oh, we're fighting this molecule guy. Well, we're going to use toxins. We're going to control the air control, the air like the what do they call it in Voyager, where they're always putting stuff through the vents. Where they're like, oh, we found a cure for this disease, so we'll put it through
Oh
the
yeah,
air
yeah, yeah.
conditioning system.
Circulation system and stuff
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. Yeah.
They would do that. They would be like, "Hey, here's this thing that can kill his particular race or whatever. We're gonna get Rachel Garrett to use her science stuff to pump something through the air or whatever, and it'll kill him." Because obviously cutting the robot's head off isn't going to do anything, and then he can just move into a person and kill them instantly. He Fuzz makes so many problems because he doesn't make any sense. He's like is it Miss Marvel? Is it no, Captain
Captain
Marvel.
Marvel.
Yeah, it's like Captain Marvel where you just go, "Oh, why is she not in any of the actual like Marvel films?" Oh, it's because she would literally just solve the situation
Yeah,
immediately.
she's
And they
too
just have to be
overpowered.
like, "Yeah, she's too overpowered." And they're like, "Oh, well, she's just randomly not here today." And you're like, "But the universe could end. Like, what is more important than this?" Like,
Yeah,
"Oh, she just can't be here because it's really difficult to write." That is the
yeah.
Fuzz problem, I think. Uh,
Let's talk about the weapon, the MacGuffin. Let's
yeah,
talk about
I'm refilling my canard. Sorry, I'm refilling my
because
canard.
we need to talk about San, but I want to talk about the
Yeah.
weapon first. That
Mm.
Empress Giorgio, created in the Mirror Universe, um, as a last resort, type thing. Now you said it was a MacGuffin.
Yeah, it's it is something like the whole point of the weapon is that the weapon doesn't matter for what it is. The
Mm,
weapon matters because of what it means to the story. And
yeah,
that's what I would class as my definition of a MacGuffin. It's
yeah.
not, it's the fact of, oh, that literally there's not any fleshing out of it. They're like, it's something that could destroy the universe. That's it. There is no bigger depth to
It is
this,
a
and it doesn't
very
make any.
weak plot device.
It's it's possibly the worst thing I've ever seen. And I've seen the dagger from Star Wars. You know, the bloody Sith dagger, where you're like,
Yes.
hey, if you're standing in a specific place and this dagger hasn't been used for its intended purpose for ages, that it maps out the exact location you need to be. And you're like, see, that makes more sense to me than this device, because essentially what this is, it's called the
Godsend.
uh God send. They have a crap bit where they're joking
That's
about whether it
awful,
means
that bit.
God's end or God's end. The writing, man, like it's really annoying because you just see these characters, these actors, these great actors, and you just go, they could have done a great thing, but with better material. And then, like the guy who plays Quasi, I really like him and stuff. The guy who plays Fuzz, I'm sure he's absolutely amazing. John Krasinski, like these are good people, and that all of the comedy scenes where you're just going, oh look, it's suicide comedy banter
John
between them,
Krasinski
just falls
deserved.
apart.
John Krasinski deserved a pure Star Trek role.
Yeah.
He
That he
really did.
definitely did. He
Yeah.
needed, even if it was just like a random bridge officer somewhere, he
Yeah.
deserved that rather than what he got. But
This
yeah,
is just that's that whole Godsend scene is just so extremely bad Guardians of the Galaxy.
but this is what I mean, where it's like this idea of it feels like writers where they haven't actually, and obviously as a neurodivergent person myself, I understand the idea that we have a lot of people who deserve to be writing, but it's like, but you just kind of go, if you struggle with how people work, maybe get someone to check your notes. Like it's there's a, I won't complain about them, but there's a business I know where the owner does all of their promotional stuff but is heavily dyslexic. And I'm just like, and loads of people are like, "Oh, you've spelt the date wrong." So that kind of changes the purpose of the entire thing, like,
It
and it's like, that's
yeah,
cool.
you
You would
need
recognize that you need someone to check over stuff. There's
you
nothing wrong
need
with being
oversight.
dyslexic, but you do need to show it to someone and be like, "Hey, could you just check this, please?" That's good
I'm the
leadership.
same.
That's good.
I'm the same. Like I've got dyscalculia.
Hmm.
I'm not dyslexic, but sometimes I find it hard to formulate words, formulate sentences. So I will write multiple letters, but I would go, I want you to check this because
Yeah,
in my eyes, this looks absolutely fine. I need you to check it to confirm. And sometimes they'll come back and go, it makes no sense. You
yeah,
need that oversight
yeah,
in
and it's
writing.
and it's that maturity of knowing that you do that and going like, "Hey, I need to check this." Like, it's something what I will always do. I'll always double check with someone, say, "Hey, am I on the right path with this? Is this does this sound too horrible, or am I being too nasty
You
in
need that
something?" Like,
reassurance as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
But the whole thing about the going back to the actual the godsend, it's
Mm.
so the idea of it is great. The idea of it is basically that Emperor Giorgio basically went, "Hey, if anyone tries to kill me, I've got a device that'll destroy the entire universe." like where basically I'm going to get this device made that'll destroy the entire universe. So if anyone threatens me, they realize that there's nothing left for them to actually take over. So there will be
Mutually assured
absolutely,
destruction.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you're just like going, wow, yeah, that's something that an evil person would do.
Hmm.
But then it all kind of just falls apart, where it's like literally one of these things where the people who created it, we have a scene between her and San, where San is her slave now
Where our
after,
friend David was in the scene again as a guard as well.
yeah,
So shout out to David for his two roles in
good
this
David.
movie.
He hasn't aged a day in it, has he? He's got like, this is about 20 years between her becoming her succession
He was
and
on the
then this
moon of
scene between
Jugal.
San.
He was on the
Yeah.
moon of Jugal, and then 75 years later, he was a
Yeah.
guy. But yeah,
True beauty. That's true beauty for you. It never fades.
this is
That's
evil David. So I was quite disappointed he
evil
didn't have.
David.
I'm quite disappointed. Yeah, French David. That he didn't have a goatee. But yeah,
Yeah.
this scene with San, because
Well,
obviously
wait.
they're both linked.
Yeah.
So we'll go on about the godsend.
Okay, no, we go to about the godsend, but we'll talk about the scene with San after because there's a lot to unpack there. But it's the idea of like, so that's something that you can fully understand. So basically, but the people that made it for her, San delivers it to her in this scene, and basically goes like, "Here's the weapon you requested." And she's like, "Oh, that's amazing. What about the people that made it?" And he's like, "Oh, they all killed themselves because they didn't want to, accept this." And you're just like going, wouldn't they have just not made it or made
Hmm.
it so it doesn't work or something, or like, I don't know, something where like if you're going to kill yourself, because you didn't want to accept responsibility for what you've done or something like that, wouldn't you like make it not work or
I'm
refuse to
sure.
make it, or
I
it just goes like, oh my god, what a horrible, and San has an amazing line in this which I quite like, which is basically where he says nobody wants to live in your universe. And it's great if everything else about her as an empress was as good as this, where you just kind of go, hey, like if it was her realizing, if this scene led to her having a glimmer of, am I the bad guy, and like she'd actually lost sight of herself, and that it kind of went on to be like she actually wasn't that bad up until this point, but then she realizes, wow, and I've got a choice between whether I do better or whether I accept that I'm a horrible person, and then you know I go on to do all this stuff. There's so much nuance you could have worked with, and the film just doesn't. But yeah, the scientists made it. They all unalived themselves. That's what you got to say online, apparently. It doesn't matter now. But yeah, and then San also unalives himself. It turns out that in this scene, he's decided to take the same poison that she gave to her parents, and then he conveniently dies at the right point of the scene. And Philippa Jojo never checks for a pulse. Never checks to go, oh, actually, is he really dead? Or, oh, okay, throw him into a furnace just to make sure, kind of thing, because, I'm suspicious as all hell. That's why I've had this device made. No, she just kind of goes like, oh, well, we'll just leave him on the floor and hope he doesn't walk off and come back in my future to haunt me or anything.
So talking about San,
Yeah.
this is again a very predictable trope.
Mm,
And I think some of modern Star Trek, i.e., Discovery,
mm.
it's either about revenge, a super weapon, and that's it.
Yeah.
And this is a combination of both. And you get the little feature of San at the beginning of the movie, and then as soon as we saw that mysterious character phase shift to steal the package, I thought that's San.
I will say, I didn't immediately guess. I literally was like, oh, that could be someone really exciting. That could be someone that
Yeah,
we haven't seen before. I didn't jump to the conclusion that was San until the next scene. Because basically, we have it where this guy appears, he's got the face suit on, he has a big fight with Michelle Yeoh. That when we're talking about visual effects, this pissed me off. It's the best idea in the whole film, but then they made it where there's a visual effect on the people who are phased out, where it has like a flicker effect on them that makes the scenes unwatchable. So you go,
yeah,
yeah, you've got this massive dramatic action scene that hurts my eyes and I don't want to see it again.
yeah,
And you're like going, why have you done this? That took you time to do. That's like people getting like tattoos on their forehead, and you're just like, you actually had to spend money and time getting that done to
yeah.
have this terrible effect. What have you done? Like
But we
But then
find out.
the
Yeah,
scene after this, when the device gets stolen, and then it basically has like the scene where San, this scene happens, and we then, I didn't know that that was San until this scene between San and Jojo in a flashback where he gives her the weapon and then dies, and I was like, oh yeah, it's San. Oh,
yeah.
okay. That's when I clicked. But it could have, if they hadn't have put this scene here and they'd had it earlier, so that you went, oh well, it can't possibly be San because we saw that he was dead. But because of the placement, it makes me just go, why would they be putting this here unless it was to throw us off? Oh, okay,
So
right, yeah.
so naturally he's trying to obtain this device back because what he wants to do is activate the device to eradicate life in the Alpha Quadrant or the
Mm.
galaxy, the prime galaxy, if you
Mhm.
will, so that he will allow the Terran Empire to flood in from the mirror universe, and then he can take over as the Emperor. And the prime galaxy is rich for resources for the Empire, and he will be the leader. And you're just like, really? Like,
I think the
why?
the worst thing about it is there's two plots, okay? Because there's Sans plot and then there's Dada Knows plot. Because
Yeah.
Dada Knows plot is even worse, where it's the idea of, because Dada know that they come across the guy that they originally steal the device from, that they have the big silly setup for to capture. Basically, he's like, oh well, it turns out that he's actually from the mirror universe, and then for some reason he's had loads of expensive cybernetics done to make himself look like his prime universe counterpart, which is totally unnecessary, seemingly, because he doesn't seem to need any of the skills,
Prosthetics,
or he
anyone?
he
Makeup?
doesn't have any of the people around him that you would expect. Like if he was surrounded with loads of bodyguards who genuinely thought that he was this crime lord he's impersonating, but instead he's on his own, which makes
Yeah.
no sense. Going to a dangerous place with his weapon with absolutely no protection whatsoever. You're like, okay, I get the idea that you aren't a crime lord here. You're just a random bloke. In which case, why get all these cybernetics in order to?
Hmm.
It doesn't make any sense. It just they got a makeup artist who said, hey, he's going to look like this. That looks cool. Let's put story in later. But his whole plan is to bring this. He's from the mirror universe. His plan is to bring it to this universe because the Terran Empire don't know that this other universe exists in his view, even though Mirror Mirror's already happened and all that lark and Mirror Darkly. Um, but then basically they look around, they wouldn't be able to find the device anymore. They'd be like, oh, where's the device gone? Oh, there must be other universes, and we must be able to find a way into this other universe. And so his whole plan was to lure them, tell them that another universe exists by taking this device away so that they would eventually find out there's other universes, which is a long shot because the amount of times when I'd be looking around the house for something, trying to find something that I've lost, it's very rare that I start going, maybe it's in another universe and I should find a way to get into
I mean,
alternate universes.
potentially, because I lose
I mean,
socks
I
all
have
the
socks.
time.
Actually, yeah, there is socks. Actually, there are socks that I think could be in an alternate dimension, but
But
the
it's
the whole
just
concept is bollocks. And then
it.
Sans plan is basically, okay, so the whole point of this device, because its skills aren't mentioned, like the purpose of it, she has a throwaway line where she says it ignites everything. It ignites everything and burns it all, kind of thing, so that everything in the universe it's not a toxin. It literally burns everything, so everything gets destroyed. And then Sans plan is, hey, I'll blow up the Prime universe, and then we can all flood in and get all those delicious resources that are not there anymore. All those people that are not there anymore. All of
Now,
that,
I
like
I thought I thought it was actually I'm pretty sure it's a biological weapon that
she
wipes
says,
out
ignites
life.
everything it touches. I'm pretty sure she says ignites,
I
and I'm just like,
I've heard it was a bio.
right,
Again, we
okay,
are
that would
having
that
to
would make sense.
fill stuff. Yeah, we are having to
But
fill
yeah,
stuff ourselves.
mention in the comments how wrong I am if I am.
If it's a biological weapon that wipes out life, fill in the comments. If it's what Synoiz is saying,
mm,
fill in the comments, because I thought that that's why they were doing it, so that the Terran Empire could flood in, invade,
mm,
because obviously everyone will be dead. They can invade and exploit the resources, the planets, yada yada yada,
yeah.
and then he would be the leader. And as we, God Almighty, We obviously the crescendo of
The,
the
the the
film.
worst the worst the worst thing, okay, like you say, the crescendo of the film is the fact of it makes even less sense. It just keeps adding stuff to it that doesn't make any sense. Because there's a scene at the end of the film after everyone's defeated and stuff. Michelle Yeoh is holding the device, and then she's holding this device, and then she touches it, and then it basically goes like, "Oh, biosignature recognized. Counter set device will blow up in 60 seconds." You're like, "Hang on, it requires her to set it off."
Yeah.
What was Sam's plan then? Like,
Yeah, exactly. Like, was he going to kidnap her? Did he have a DNA? Like,
yeah. I
what?
mean, why did she set it off? Like the whole thing is that the whole thing is when she discovers what it is. There's a scene after she has the big phased fight thing where she
Yeah.
gets to see what's actually in the case, and it's this device, and she's like, "What? I thought I had that destroyed." And you're like, "Okay, so what we've established here is it can be destroyed by people. There is no failsafe, but there is a way to destroy it, or at least she was confident that there were, and people betrayed her by not destroying it. However, at the end, she chooses not to actually just keep a hold of it and then find a way to destroy it. She decides to actually just detonate it. It seemingly can only be detonated by her, so the villain's plan makes no sense whatsoever. Also, why would you do this? And then also, like what they do is they basically her plan is to set the device, fly into the gateway, like the tunnel, but like the wormhole between this universe and this dimension and the other dimension. Universe? I don't know. This
Universe.
universe and the other one. And then basically explode it inside the tunnel so
Mhm.
that neither universe is actually blown up.
Yeah.
Which I'd say is a bit of a gamble, because I would be tempted to say both universes would be destroyed by doing that.
Exactly.
Like, but then we have a weird scene where we literally have it where it explodes. Everyone sees the flash. Everyone is affected by the flash. Like the people on the actual other ship are knocked out of their seats or whatever by the explosion. And you're like, so it did explode in this universe in order to have those kind of effects, but then it didn't
Yeah.
because it's like one of those things. It's like going, why we don't see light in black holes. It's like the whole point is that if you're in this tunnel, then it makes no sense. Its ability, like it's just you know when you're playing chess, and the trick to chess is to think 3 moves ahead. You're
Mhm.
not going to get very far if all you think about is the next step. This is writers where they haven't thought anywhere past the first step. They haven't thought that anyone's going to sit there and be like, "Oh, but what about this? But what about this?" And that's bad writing. It's lazy writing.
And again, when the device blew up and the gateway to the mirror universe was shut, right?
Mm.
I sat there and I thought they could have used this as the perfect excuse for the collapse of the Terran Empire, and thus the Alliance in Deep Space Nine
Mm.
emerges as the dominant power of the Alpha and Beta quadrants.
Yeah,
they could have done that. They could have expositioned that. They could have built on what we saw in DS9 and establish why the Terran, because as far as we knew, the Terran
yeah,
Empire fell because of a rebellion that happened in Mirror Mirror in the original series when Kirk put into Spock's head, this does not have
yeah,
to be your life, blah blah blah. This could have been the perfect way to go. Listen, there was an entire fleet on that side. They blew up because a large fleet had blew up. It allowed the other races to unite and rise up against a weakened Terran Empire,
mm.
and that's how they collapsed, and that's how the Alliance was born. Blah blah blah. Did they do that? No.
Yeah, no, there's so many opportunities for them to fit it into actual established canon, but then
Yeah,
all
yeah.
they do is demonstrate that they don't have a clue what they're actually writing for.
They really don't. And
I mean,
speaking of,
you could yeah, hold on, you could actually do it where you could even make a self-contained thing where we make it a time loop, where we have
yeah,
it where the device blowing up in the mirror universe is what kills the Emperor that Giorgio then follows.
yeah,
Something like that, where you just go, because that's the whole thing. It's like, how the fuck do we have these Hunger Game things? Why would that be necessary? Oh, because everyone got killed. All of the like people in line got killed, and therefore they were like, what do we do? Let's make up a new method in
Yeah,
order to find the strongest. Something like that. And then you got this nice little I mean, I hate it, but it's at the same time you're like, that kind of would be cool if you were like, oh
yeah.
wow, you actually shaped your own destiny by, that's you know but no, nothing. Like there's absolutely we don't even know. Like I'm literally I was chatting to people about the idea of maybe they just actually got through to the other mirror universe and now the mirror universe is just gone. Like
No, because we
maybe it
see it in
did blow up in the
DS9.
other universe. Like past this date.
No, DS9 obviously is the 2360s and 70s. This is
Yes, yes, oh yeah.
2326. So,
Ugh.
but I mean,
It's just so frustrating, all of it, where you just like you could have done this so much better. Like you just go, could anyone else have had a go at this? You know?
the one final thing I want to address, because I am looking at that clock and my God, we are classically going on. The one thing I want to address is the pointless cameo of Jamie Lee Curtis in this film.
I've literally here's my capital letters. Why is Jamie Lee Curtis in this? You know, it's just
She is Control,
oh.
apparently, because Control is still a thing despite it whole season 2 of Discovery being an
But the
absolute
whole
fuck up.
the whole point that is literally like somehow Palpatine returned, where you're just going,
Yeah.
hey, Discovery did all of this stuff, and loads of people sacrificed their lives or whatever, and Discovery was thrown into the future, like in order to stop Control becoming a thing. I get Control's a thing, and then for some reason it's the idea of going, maybe the only saving grace of this is that this isn't Control as we know from Discovery.
Yeah.
It's just that the writers thought it was a cool name for the boss, like
Mhm.
Alpha or something like that, and they didn't know enough about the lore to go, oh, Control is actually already a thing, and it's something that wouldn't make any sense in this capacity
But
and
but
wouldn't be played by Jamie Lee Curtis.
but why? I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis has hit this is all she needs is a third movie to hit a home run of bad movies in a year because she did Borderlands and now she's done this. But why is she in this film?
Yeah. It
What
I
does it
assume
add?
it's simply because she's good friends with Michelle Yeoh because they were both amazing in Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I really want to watch again to get the taste of this movie out of my mouth.
You know,
Um, I assume it was just her being like Michelle Yeoh being like, "Hey, would you be in this movie that I'm in?" And she was like, "Yeah, go on then." That's all I can think of. Like that's the only reason I can imagine her being there.
Red Letter Media hit it out the park because
Mm.
again, Rich Evans was like, "Why is Jamie Lee Curtis in this?" And Mike just turned around and went, Michelle Yeoh just went, "Hey, they're just giving money away at this point, dude." And I'm just like, yeah,
That's it. That'll
exactly,
be it.
exactly, and like the things that they could have done better in this film. Like I'm not going to go on about effects or anything like that. Just the actual plot. If they were dead set on it being the Lost Era, the 2320s,
Mm.
we could have had Rachel Garrett explored a lot more. We
Yeah.
could have had actual Starfleet involved, or Monster
Yeah.
Maroons, or starships, or anything like that. We could have had a young Sloane.
Yeah.
We
We
could
could have
have
had
had,
Section 31. We
yeah,
could have
we could have
actually had
had
Section 31
we
in the
could have
movie.
had a proper Section 31, but if we couldn't have that, we could have had Philippa Georgiou forming a team, taking a young Sloane under her wing and training
Yeah.
him up on the ways of Section 31. We didn't get that.
Yeah.
We didn't get
It could be it could literally be a film where that is the premise, the premise where basically, Giorgio is like the leader of Section 31 now. She's got herself all the way to the top,
yeah.
and then she's leading Sloane through, and then it's all told from Sloane's point of view or whatever. And then he goes through this whole mission and stuff, and there's all these conspiracies and stuff, and people being killed. And then the twist at the end of the film is that actually this was all his training. Like he literally, the whole betrayal and everything was all set up to make sure, like in the Bashir episode, make sure that he was suitable candidate for it, and it was all set up by Giorgio. And like to go, hey, actually, yeah, you are worthy of being my successor. And then that parodies the whole what she had to do to get her like crown at the beginning. So much you could do with the thing, and then we got this where nobody. Yeah, sorry, carry on.
I'm
I have a thing that I need to dump on that is a totally minor thing compared to what you're talking about, but
I well before you do, I'm going to get this out there.
yeah.
And I have mentioned this many, many times, and this is hopefully the last time I ever have to discuss Section 31.
Hmm.
This is a watershed moment for Star Trek. This is a fork in the road for Kurtzman, Paramount, CBS, anyone involved in Star Trek, because
Hmm.
this film has been, I would say, almost universally panned
Hmm.
as a bad, not just a bad film, a bad Star Trek film.
Yeah.
Um,
Good news for Nemesis.
Nemesis and Into Darkness can remove the crown as one of the worst films because this is the worst
Hmm.
Star Trek property ever created. Now, Paramount has a decision to make, and
Hmm.
I'm going to make a prediction. There is going to be two ways that this is going to happen.
Hmm.
One, which is highly likely, Kurtzman and his crew are replaced. They step
Hmm.
down and they are replaced. The second option is they double down on what they are seeing and what they are producing and going, it's getting the numbers, and they just continue as is.
Or the third one, they give up on Star Trek. And this is what obviously Sean and Trek Culture was worried about in terms of going, hey, if we don't support this film, if we don't go, hey, let's watch Section 31, that Paramount are going to turn around and say, hey, people don't like Star Trek anymore. Because the executives aren't going to look at it. They're going to look at it purely at the numbers, not on the actual what people are
And this
saying.
is what's
And they're
worrying.
gonna go, oh, it didn't, nobody watched it. People mustn't care about Star Trek anymore. And you're just
And
going, and that's a real reality. That's a
this
reality.
is
But
this
then at
is
the
what's
same time, you're
worrying.
like, we can't celebrate something that's terrible purely because it's the best we got.
Yeah,
That's like going, oh, I got to eat like dirt and it was the best meal I had today, so I guess I should be thankful for it.
I had to post tweets and things on Blue Sky to say, hey, watch this because we may not get any more Star Trek. And I shouldn't have to do that. We should be in a state where Paramount doesn't just look at the numbers. The board doesn't just look at the numbers. They take on board the feedback for the properties that they make. But in an age of streaming, they don't care. They just look at
Mm.
how many subscribers it pulls in, how many numbers it makes. So then people like me have to go, if we don't watch this, which is clearly bad, those at the
Mm.
top will go, people aren't interested in Star Trek anymore, so we'll just pull the plug. Instead of just going, no, they're not watching it because it is horrendously bad.
What we should be doing is we should be saying, hey, watch this if you've got Paramount Plus, but don't sign up to Paramount Plus because of it. Sign up to Paramount Plus in order to watch other Star Trek, in order to
Yeah,
watch stuff like Discovery's not for me, but you might absolutely love it. So if you're not a Star Trek fan, give that a go. Like I've got a mate who really likes Discovery and they don't know any other Star Trek, and that allows them to kind of enjoy it. But literally watch the original series, watch TNG, watch DS9, watch Voyager, watch Enterprise, watch Lower Decks, watch Strange New World, especially watch Strange New Worlds. It's so good. And that's the thing we should be doing. We should be going, hey, if you don't like Section 31, watch the fuck out of Strange New Worlds so that the people at Paramount who don't really understand how people feel look at the numbers and go, wow, this Star Trek show is getting loads of views and stuff. Oh, Star Trek must be popular. It must just be Section 31 that's crap. Like, that's all I can think to do, okay? Rather than being like, hey, we've got to champion this film. Because what we don't want is people going, wow, Section 31 was a big success. Let's keep on doing stuff like this. Because we don't want that. We don't
we
want
don't.
anything to do. This, the biggest crime, I keep saying it, but the biggest crime of this is that it actually kind of kills the character of Philippa Jojo. This amazing character with all this potential just feels crap now. The film is awful to her in making her this kind of soft, kind of comedy villainess. Like she's like a Disney villain rather than an actual. And it literally goes, oh, she's genocidal. Oh, she's evil. She'll kill you at anything. And then she doesn't do anything nasty throughout the entire film. Even the one person that she kills in this film, which is I think she only kills one person. The one person she kills, which is San, is by accident. So you're sitting there being like, she doesn't seem particularly evil at all. Like, she should have at least killed one of the team or something during the course of the film. Like, or maybe executed Garrett and then realized afterwards, oh, it wasn't her. Whoops, or something like that.
I I am so tired of discussing this film, but
Can I
I,
can I just do a couple of little things?
yes,
Can I? Yeah.
absolutely, go ahead.
Okay. The biggest thing that annoys me is when they steal the garbage ship and they're on the
Yeah,
garbage ship and they're doing all of that. They have it where he manages to lift off the ship, fly the ship, manages to teleport, the two of them, Michelle Yeoh and the bald guy, over to the other ship in order for the big fight scene to happen, and then when it gets to the bit where they're going, oh well, we need to try and destroy the guy who has already said that he can't be killed by explosions because he's too small. We need to blow him up by releasing a bomb through the garbage stuff, but like releasing the garbage into space and then the bomb explodes and it'll take him with them. It's a very long shot thing, but it's kind of Star Trekky. But have all of that. But then at that point of the film, he's like, oh, I don't speak this language. I don't know how these controls work in order for this to do this. And it tries to do a tense moment of, oh, it's a 50-50 chance. I'll either blow up the ship or I'll open the dock. And you're like, why would you have that on the same panel?
yeah.
I don't understand it. And also, how did you do everything else? How did you teleport people? Like that is a very complicated with like, hey, what coordinates do they need to go to? You can't guess that. Like, and then later on, it has a ludicrous bit, which is basically it has the whole faux, oh, Jojo's going to give her life and she's going to blow up with the device and they're ready to sacrifice themselves, but they get teleported out at the last minute, literally the last minute, because they're just about to go through the gateway. But that the guy who doesn't know how to read the language that the controls are in manages to know to filter out the bomb that Philippa Jojo is carrying in that specific moment. It would have been far funnier for him to literally go, hey, I teleported you out just in time, and oh, you're still carrying the device. Well, boom, end of film, everyone's happy. And then we don't get the bloody. Yeah, the bomb as well. Like, I made a really silly note when I was rewatching it earlier on, which is that Rachel Garrett goes, I have to demonstrate that I'm a scientist, so I'll have one scene where I actually demonstrate some scientific know-how. Where she goes through the rubbish that they have in the garbage ship, she finds this like alien doll, and then it's weird and it's talking, and I don't know what they're intending for it for the film. And it's still, and then she looks at the battery pack and she's like, "Wow, yeah, this race didn't get access to the Federation because they used like really dangerous material in their batteries. Therefore, she gets this chemical out of her arse. I don't know where she gets this chemical from. She just has it. Pours it over the battery, runs away from it, but still has time to get back to the actual like the bridge, sit down, have a conversation with the guy before it actually blows up. Like that's a convenient. But then the thing that bothered me is that they press the right button, they open up the doors, the doll flies into space, and then just as it's exploding, it screams, and you're like, does this doll feel pain? Has someone made a doll that is actually self-aware enough that it knows when it's being exploded? Why would you do that? Why would you give a child, but considering all children are actual psychopaths, anyone who has spent time with anything between like 3 and about 6 knows that they are not to be trusted with anything. Like, this is literally why we move everything to the upper cupboards and we go, hey, maybe the oven isn't a safe place to play. Uh, just goes, hey, let's give a doll that can actually recognize agony, like to, I don't know. And it's a minor thing, and I know it's just there for the film. I know it's just there to be like, oh, dramatic moment, but you just like, fuck this film. It's just everything about it. And then obviously, final thing I'm going to complain about. No, actually, no. Two things. I'm keep going. I'm sorry. Okay, I'll blaze through them. Okay, 3 of your Earth weeks later, it comes up on the
Oh,
subtitle.
screw
Why the
that.
fuck would it say this? Who speaks
Screw
like that?
that.
Who like the title? What does it want to be? Does it want to be masquerading as a Section 31 communication that we've somehow got sight of or something? Or is it actually talking to us as a non-Star Trek audience viewing this film? I
I
don't
think,
know.
yeah,
It's confused.
it's a non-Star Trek audience, but the chapters, me and Sean speculated that the chapters that they have were actually going to be episode names.
But then there's only 3 of them. But no,
Yeah, yeah.
potentially. But it's just the whole thing of encrypted transmission 1 2. It's awful. I hate it. But yeah,
Yeah.
I literally wrote three of your weeks later. Fuck off. That's what I wrote down. And then yeah, and then the last scene we get the where they're all hanging out together kind of thing, and Giorgio's like, oh, I'm so evil. Oh, I'm so evil. And then they all hang out together like they're friends. And then the bloody Vulcan turns up again. Fuzz turns up,
Oh.
and this time he's got a terrible Texas accent on. And then it turns out that actually this isn't Fuzz because they've survived and they're somewhere. But this is actually his wife that he's mentioned. His
Yeah.
pregnant wife is now piloting a duplicate of the robot, which suggests that this race of nano people, all of their robots, for some reason, are really badly thought out Vulcan robots, like that look like this. And you're like, okay,
It's
if
so
like is that
bad.
like the Terminator? Why would you pick this design if you're going to make a generic Arnie Terminator type thing where hey, all of our robots look the same and stuff? Why would it be this random Vulcan look? I don't get it. But yeah, but it has a Texas accent now, which is terrible. And then she's like, "Oh well, I'm going to be around for the sequel or whatever, and I'm going to hunt down my husband to give him a right good like tongue lashing." And it's like, aren't you meant to be pregnant with like 190,000 babies? Like, have you had the babies? Are you pregnant with them now? Like, that was his whole plot. His whole plot was that he's doing all of this to make the universe safer for his babies. But then his wife just turns up and she's just like, I'm just here. No real consequences to
Can
anything.
I end this on a high?
Oh, hold on,
And it
hold on. Also, final one. Why the fuck are they watching the mission briefing in a crowded bar?
right.
This is
Oh my
this
god,
is
that's what I was
supposed
going to
to
say.
be this is supposed to be the most secret organization in the entire world where literally there is a DS9 episode about hey, they don't Section 31 is so secretive that they don't write anything down and it only exists in the memory of the people in the organization. So when Sloane's brain dies, all of their knowledge dies. And instead, we literally have these people who are like, hey, let's just have a giant hologram talking about the secret mission. And then when it pans out at the end, after Jamie Lee Curtis has done a thing, it pans out. And the half and half guy, what's the race called again? The oh, I forgot. The the
Carons.
the half and half guy is
Yeah.
literally a meter back
Yeah.
watching along with them, and then a meter behind him is just some bar patrons. So everyone heard the super secret briefing. Everyone there knows that they are now members of Section 31. I make it make sense. And then when you're like, that's the worst thing I've ever seen. That's literally one of the biggest oversights I've ever seen. Then the final scene is that the whole ship, the whole space station, actually, and all of the surrounding ships next to it is capable of warp and
Yeah.
randomly just warps out for no reason. I'm like, so you've just taken all of your patrons off on a mission? Like, would you be
Right.
pissed off? Would you be pissed off if you were just in a bar and then they just teleported it to the other side of the galaxy? You'd just be like,
It makes no
I kind of
sense.
need to be somewhere. Like,
How
it's
how is
just
this space station warp capable?
yeah, like, but it's the surrounding ships. They're not even attached to it, but they vanish as well. If they were like left a gap or something, I don't know, but
The last thing I'm going to
all
say
of it
though,
is terrible.
the last thing I'm going to say though, and then we're going to end, is Turkana 4, the new
Hmm.
mission, is the birthplace of Tasha Yar.
Ah, yes, yes.
And that's my only fact on this. Quite frankly, this movie made me angry and it mentally drained me. And I honestly thought I was just so ill that
Yeah.
I just couldn't be arsed. I was tired. I'd just driven 4 or 5 hours. But no, like upon reflection, upon discussing it, no, it has made me angry, but it's made me disappointed that the first Star Trek movie in nearly 10 years
Hmm.
is this.
Yeah. And with the fact of $90 million, could that have made us a new show of something we actually wanted to see? Could that have
Yeah,
actually made us a new Star Trek show?
yeah.
Like,
And
that would have been some. Could it have given us another series of Strange New Worlds? Could it have given us like anything? Like anything's got to be better than this. It is
and
so upsetting.
the one final thing I will say before we move on is that
Mm.
after the screening, Michelle Yeoh, Rob Kaczynski came onto the stage, round of applause, and the compare that came out, because there was a Q&A after the event, and the compare was like, so Michelle Yeoh, this is the first time you have seen Section 31 in full, isn't it? And she was like, yes it is. And he was like, what did you think of the movie? And she literally did this. She went, what did you guys think? Pointed the microphone to the audience, and the audience just went, yeah. And I was like, oh my God. Like, it was so, like, you could see in her eyes, right? Michelle Yeoh's a lovely woman. She is a wonderful person, right?
Yeah.
You could see she was not happy with this.
Yeah.
Just from her eyes, she was not happy with this. And you have to think, she's an Oscar winner.
Yeah.
And she's gone back and made this movie after winning an Oscar.
Like, and she's one of the most beloved characters. Like, I would see this as, wow, this looks bad for me after winning an Oscar, but also I worked hard to create an amazing character that people wanted to see more of. And now nobody is going to be asking to see this character again after this travesty. Like,
Yeah.
everyone's a bit like, yeah, we're kind of done with Giorgio now, actually. They're kind of pissed all over her, that. And that's the upsetting thing for me. I'm not a fan of Discovery, but I don't want to see its legacy ruined by terrible stuff,
I think this movie is going to be, we're going to be talking about it for years, but in terms of like actual Star Trek universe, it's going to be quickly forgotten and very,
Yeah.
very rarely rewatched by people.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
Hold on a moment. Well, yeah, we need to move on, don't we? We need to move on to.
do need to move on because that was our review, finally, of Star Trek Section 31. Now to the juicy part of Trekking Up North, because Science Officer Synoiz, we are getting an incoming transmission.
Incoming transmission.
Oh! Welcome, everybody, to the double wheel of honor. It's the same double wheel you know and love, but it has a few special features newly installed by Science Officer Synoiz. Do you want to discuss these new features with them?
I want to discuss, like, what we're going to do is we're going to record a video to come out separately explaining how the new Dabo Wheels works, but we'll just have a little brief rundown here, which is basically each episode, we are going to have some kind of deciding factor, whether it's a special guest, whether it's a quiz online, whether it's like some question posed by you, the viewer, in the comments, that basically decides whether or not we deserve something good or something bad to review afterwards. So what we have now is, rather than a whole wheel of every single episode that we've ever that has ever existed for Star Trek, because they are all in there. Discovery is in the Dabo Wheel now. Animated series is in the Dabo Wheel. Lower Decks is. That rather than us risking anything, we've picked out 24 of our best episodes and our worst episodes of Star Trek that we want to discuss. And then what we do is, just depending on these decisions and what we do in the episode, we get to spin on either the Dabo Wheel of Honor or the Dabo Wheel of Shame. And yes, and each one contains, random episodes, and then we might add new ones to them as we go through. But what we've got here is We've survived Section 31. We've talked about this movie. I've watched this twice now. Goodwill has watched this. How many times have you watched it, Goodwill?
I don't want to say.
Okay, yeah, two more times than
Too
anyone
many.
else in the world.
Too
Even
many.
the people editing it, seemingly. So
I
we
counted
just
smash cuts.
oh God, you did as well. That's awful. 58.
In my pants, in a urine-soaked straight jacket, in a padded cell, carving each crash zoom into the pillow on the wall. It's like 42.
That's it. I love the idea that someone's gonna come into your room and they're gonna be like, "What are all these weird markings on the walls? Is this how many days you've been
I
incarcerated?"
went back on
here?" And it's like,
medication.
no, it's how many smash zooms there are in Section 31.
I can't be out in normal life because I cannot crash zoom onto something to focus on it. I can't do it.
But yeah, so we deserve a reward for getting through this
We
absolute
do.
pile of shit. So this week we are spinning on the Dabo Wheel of Honor, which contains 24 of our favorite episodes. These are episodes that we have wanted to discuss for a very long time, doing Trekking Up North for 2 years now. I don't know. We've done it for a fair while.
It's next week.
Year and a half.
Next week will be our 2nd anniversary.
There we go.
It's our 2nd birthday, so we will get the banners out next week in the party hats and alcohol because God Almighty, I need it.
So here we go. Let us spin on the Dabo wheel, and we will work out what episode that we are going to be talking about next week.
So, if this is your first time watching Trekkin Up North, first of all, welcome to our new home. If you are
You've gone through a lot.
You've gone through a lot, much like we did. When we spin the Dabo wheel, whatever it lands on, we must review. When it spins, we build up the tension. Oh. And when the wheel stops, everyone, and I mean everyone at the top of their lungs must yell Dabo. You must comment Dabo down below to let us know that you have got to this point. So, are you ready, Science Officer Synoiz?
I am ready. My body is willing.
In 3, 2, 1.
Wow!
Ad Astra.
What an episode.
Ad Astra per Aspera from Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 2. What we reviewed this in 2023
when it came out.
When it came out, man.
And this is the thing, there are so many shows, there are so many YouTube channels, okay, and there's so many Facebook groups where everyone is so negative about Trek. Like, it's the whole thing of, like, while I disagree with all Trek is good Trek, like, because there are bad, there is bad Trek out there, it's the idea of a lot of people feel like they have to shit on all Trek that came out after Enterprise and be like, oh, it's all terrible in order to justify any of it being terrible. And we're kind of sitting here be like, no, Lower Decks is brilliant. Nope, Strange New Worlds is brilliant. Like, Discovery has its moments throughout the series and there's bits that people love about it and stuff. But, like, there's so much good Trek. And Strange New Worlds has just knocked it out the park with how good it is. And people hate on it because they're like, oh, well, it must be terrible because it came after Kurtzman. And it's like, no, watch it, you idiots. And I remember us getting so excited about going, oh, are we going to get excited about an episode where there's loads of space battles and there's loads of like lens flares and all this exciting stuff happening? Oh, it's a courtroom episode where everyone just sits in the room and talks. Oh, and then we know it's like the Dabo wheel, literally, it also has, I put Measure of a Man in. This is one of your choices. I put the Measure of a Man in, and I'm like, that's another courtroom episode. And we're like, 24 greatest episodes of Star Trek decided between us, and 2 of them are courtroom episodes, which says a lot.
This is the thing, because my buddy Isaac, who does the Trek 365 audio show, he asked me to do a mini review of Sins of the Father. And I sat there and I went, I love this episode. And then I realised it's another bloody courtroom episode, but it's a Klingon courtroom episode. Honestly, if I ever watch Jag, I'm probably just
Yeah.
gonna jizz myself to death because it's 240 episodes of courtroom stuff. But this is we've reviewed this previously, but we're gonna go back in with a fresh pair of eyes in 2025 on our new channel, and we are just gonna deep dive into this episode because we sang its praises when it first came out in 2023, and I'm pretty sure we're going to sing its praises again when we go to review it. So, computer, please change back to the new layout.
Oh, it's very fancy.
I know it.
It's got grey bits, all lovely.
It's all grey like me. Right, that has been the first premiere episode of Trekkin Up North on the Trekkin Up North YouTube channel. I would like to thank Science Officer Synoiz for bearing with me for these couple of months in between doing 17 other jobs, getting this ready. I would like to thank again Mike Overton for designing this template. His website is down below and on the side of the screen. If you like this video, please hit that like button. If you are not a member of Trekking Up North, please subscribe to this channel because we want to have it growing. We want to have fun. We just want to talk about Star Trek all the time.
We've changed to a new channel simply because YouTube, it really struggles with channels that have a lot of different content. And while we are still part of Nerdy Up North, it's the fact of it's very difficult when Nerdy Up North does so many different shows and we can't cater anything, and that we had people subscribing and then be like, oh, I'm seeing your stuff, but then seeing loads of stuff that I'm interested in, and then they have to turn notifications off, and it's just the limitations of YouTube. So this allows us to be part of the Nerdy Up North network. So definitely subscribe to Nerdy Up North, watch all of their wonderful shows like Monsters Up North and Gaming Up North and Top Grumps and all of their film reviews and stuff. Do all of that and then subscribe to our channel as well to be informed of when we next go. Yeah, we're gonna do some live episodes, I think, at some point.
We
gonna
are
be more pre-recorded for this because I'm incredibly busy and I can't be ready free on a dedicated night. You are incredibly busy and can't be free on a dedicated night. So they'll come when they come.
They will come when they come, as the priest said to the altar boy. But we are still part of Nerdy Up North. The link to their YouTube channel is down in the description below, as well as Trek Culture, who, again, are a fantastic channel. They are also based in the northeast of England, so huge shout out to them. Clone Star Podcast, yes, I am part of them. The Search for Trek, yes, I am part of them. Trek 365, yes, I am part of them. Everything else.
You are a busy monkey.
I have no life. We've also got someone called The Velvet Snatch down below. Please give them a subscribe. But yeah, we want to build this for you. And Trekking Up North officially has an Instagram page, a Blue Sky page, and a X page. So you can find all the links to our socials down below. What do you think of Star Trek Section 31? Did you actually like it? Let us know in the comments below what you thought.
Let's get a discussion going in the comments, because I will personally reply to the comments and whatnot. I want to know what upset you about the movie, what you loved about the movie. Like, let's try and be as positive as possible. Like, I struggled being positive with this movie because it has so many flaws, but there are so many people that just went, hey, I switched my mind off and then I just kind of like enjoyed it for the fun film it is. And it's the idea of that, you know, I want to hear from you. Like, what did you think of it? And like and share the video and subscribe.
Share this video far and wide, everybody. Subscribe, hit that bell for when we next upload our video. But for now, I have been Captain Goodwill of the Starship Adequate. He has been Science Officer Synoiz, the delectable Geesian from the planet Honk. And until next time, as ever on Trekking Up North, live long and prosper, stay safe, and Miles?
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 Miles? Why the fuck is Jamie Lee Curtis in this movie?